Dan, I like your background.
Oh, yes, I took a lot of care to make this map. Yes, thank you, Bob.
Hey everyone, we're going to give it another couple of minutes for people to sign on. Valerie, can you let me know when we have a quorum? Great, thanks.
Yes, I will let you know in just a second. We're almost there. We have a quorum.
Just one more minute and okay. Tonight's a Thursday, September 17th, 2020, CB2 full board meeting. We're going to get started. Before we get going, let me just make sure that I share with everybody. Let me get that up, the full board package for members of the public. Put the link into the chat. Give me 1 second.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm on. Do you know what day?
All right, so let me put this into the chat for everybody, the full board package.
Carter, just want to note that the full board package does not include the amended agenda that was sent out about half an hour ago.
Okay. And that just includes item number 7 under the standing committee reports, which is the announcement regarding nominations. We're just announcing that the nominations are open. All right, so let's get started. Valerie, do you want to call attendance and we can go from there?
Yes. All right. Susanna Aaron.
Here.
Akila Azqui.
Here.
William Benesh.
Here.
Dean Berger. Carter Booth.
Here.
Katie Bordenaro. Anita Brandt.
Here.
Rich Cacapolo.
Here.
Ritu Chaudhry. Coral Dawson. Valerie De La Rosa. John Paul DeVerna.
Here.
Doris Diether, is she on the phone?
Yes, she is.
Okay. Bob Ely.
Yeah, here.
Mara Fitzgerald.
Here.
Cormac Flynn. Katie, I see you in the chat. I did not hear you, but I've got you.
Thank you.
Oh, I hear you now. Cormac Flynn. Joseph Gallagher.
Here.
Susan Gammy. David Gruber. Wayne Kawadler.
Here.
Susan Kent.
Here.
Janine Kiley.
Here.
Thanks. Betty Kabobi Weiss.
Here.
Patricia Laria.
Here.
Michael Levine.
Here.
Janet Liff.
Here.
Edward Ma.
Here.
Matt Metzger.
Here.
Daniel Miller. Brian Pape.
Here. I am present.
Donna Raftery.
Here.
Lois Rakoff.
I saw her.
Yeah, I saw her too. Robin Rothstein.
Here.
Sandy Russo.
Here.
Rocio Sands.
Here.
Scott Sartiano. Shirley Secunda.
Here.
Will be late. Frederica Siegel.
Here.
Thank you. Georgia Silvera Siemens.
Here.
Great. Dr. Shirley Smith. I think I saw her.
Saw her name.
Here.
Thank you. Chenault Spence.
Here.
Kathy Sullivan. I think I saw her earlier. Eugene Yu.
Here.
Susan Wittenberg. Anthony Wong.
Present.
Thanks. And Adam Zeldin. Great. Thank you very much.
Great, Valerie. I'm just going to mute everybody now so that we've.
Valerie, I'm here. It's David.
Thanks, David.
Is there anybody else who was missed? Okay.
Did you get Keen?
I did not. Is
I
she,
saw her there.
Okay, I'll scroll through the list to make sure if anyone's present that maybe didn't get heard. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the public session. Dan Miller, first vice chair, is going to run the public session.
Thank you very much, Carter. We have 5 public speakers tonight, and the very first speaker is Stephen Williams from Accessible Dispatch Program. So if you could give us Stephen's feed, that would be great. I just want to let you know before we start, Stephen, that we ask you to keep it to 2 minutes. And this is just testimony from the public. There's not going to be any opining or back and forth unless a community board member has a question for you. So it's your floor, Stephen.
This was Stephen Williams, correct?
Stephen Williams from Accessible Dispatch Program.
Stephen, are you with us?
If Stephen's not here quite yet, we can.
Hi, folks. How you doing? I was on mute for a second. How you doing?
Perfect. Thank you.
Can I show you a screen, or is that okay, or is that acceptable, or you just want me to speak?
Are you able to share the screen, Carter? Are you able to give him an opportunity to share screen?
If not, it's no big deal.
So you can go ahead and do that now, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Hi, folks. My name is Stephen Williams. I represent the Accessible Dispatch Program. This is a program that connects the community to wheelchair accessible taxis all throughout the 5 boroughs of New York City. And you're probably wondering, what is Accessible Dispatch? It's a citywide wheelchair accessible taxi service that services all the 5 boroughs of New York City. It operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in all 5 boroughs. There's no enrollment. Everyone is eligible for the program, which is really awesome. Passengers pay only the metered fare set by the TLC. So these are larger vehicles that can hold a wheelchair passenger plus additional passengers who aren't using wheelchairs. So the car is bigger and larger, and you get a driver who's trained to secure people in and out of the vehicle and also secure them inside the car. But they pay the same fare as a regular standardized sedan, which is really great. All drivers are trained in wheelchair securement. It's an on-demand service or advanced reservations. I usually tell people, if you're out of the 5 boroughs and you want to get a trip reservation, it's good to go with an advance reservation. There are 3 ways to access the service, to access cars. You can basically go to our website, www.accessibleddispatch.com, or you can use our mobile app, Accessible Dispatch NYC, or you can call our 24-hour dispatch call center, which is 646-5999-999, a lot of nines, okay? So if you have any questions, definitely I want you to call our 24-hour dispatch call center at 646-599-9999. And also you can email us at accessibleddispatch@mtm-inc.net, or you can go directly to our website. But most importantly, if you have any questions, definitely feel called to call our 24-hour dispatch call center. So thank you, folks, for your time. Thank you so much.
Okay, Stephen, hang with us because we have a question from one of our members, Susanna Aaron.
Hi there, thank you. Can you just tell me, is this a government program or a not-for-profit or a for-profit company like Uber?
Good question. This is directly from the TLC, which is a city agency. And you don't need any type of insurance plan to be a part of it. You pay privately, you pay out of your pocket. So it's like a regular taxi cab, except it's larger, and you have someone who's trained to assist the person in and out of the vehicle. And it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And also one thing I want to note is that this is for anyone. You don't have to be using a wheelchair. It's for anybody that wants to use the service. New York City wants to make the city more accessible to everybody.
I'm sorry, but can you just clarify, are you licensed by TLC? Are you funded by them?
Yes, this is actually the TLC. This is actually the TLC, Tax Limiting Commission. Good question. Yes, this is the TLC. Mm-hmm.
It's different than Accessoride, though.
Yes, it's different. Accessoride you have to qualify for. This you don't have to qualify for. Anyone can use this program. Great question.
We have a couple more questions too. Michael Levine.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. Can you tell us, how does the price compare with standard taxis, with Uber, with Lyft? Is it the same price, or is there an extra fee for the extra service?
That's a great question, Michael. This is a taxi cab, so even though the cars are larger, you get charged the same fare as a regular size taxi. And even though the cars are larger and you have someone trained to assist someone in and out of the vehicle, the price is still the same, which is really great. So it's a win-win for you. You get a larger car and you get someone who's trained to assist you in and out of the vehicle.
Good, thank you.
And Rocio? Next question.
Yes. My question is, would this be a group ride or only one person at a time?
That's a great question. This is not a shared ride service. Basically, so when they pick you up, they won't be picking up another group, which is what Accessoride does. So if you go on a trip, that you're the only person that's going to be going on that trip. You can bring guests if you want to, but yeah, this is not a shared ride service. Very good question.
Robin Rothstein?
You almost just answered it. I was going to say, is the client allowed to bring an aide or an assistant, and is the price then for both?
Yeah, so basically the way it works is that you only pay that one fare and that's it. And the person can bring a guest with them. They can also bring for example, a service animal with them as well. So yeah, the person can bring guests. And some of our cars can hold up to 4 passengers and 1 wheelchair passenger.
And it's one fare. It's for the client, the person who's needs the help.
Yes, it's one fare. Exactly. It's one fare.
Thank you.
Lois? Lois Rakoff?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Okay, 2 questions. What is the waiting time when you call? And the second question is, who is the trained person? Is it the driver who's trained, or is there another person, a trained person with the driver?
Great question. Basically, we try to strive for wait times around the 15-minute time frame. It will vary as you go outside of Manhattan. If you go to, for example, the Bronx or some parts in Queens or Staten Island, so it will vary. We try to strive for that 15-minute time frame. And the question about who's trained, it's going to be the driver. All drivers who drive any TLC cab go through a wheelchair passenger assistant training program when they secure their license. So it's going to be the driver who's a trained person who assists the person inside and out the vehicle.
How long has this been going on?
This is good question. I would say it's been going on for 8 years now. It started out in 8 years ago. It was initially basically just Manhattan, but as of 2.5, 3 years ago, it's been expanded to all 5 boroughs.
Thank you. It was very enlightening.
Oh, thank you, folks. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate it.
You bet. David, you had your hand up.
My question was asked already.
All right, great. So thank you so much for the presentation. Very valuable for our community to hear. Our second speaker is Nathaniel Weiss, who's going to be speaking about 72 West 11th Street renovation proposal. Have you been able to identify? And also Assembly Member Deborah Glick just joined us too, so we'll give her an opportunity to speak.
Hi, this is Nathaniel Weiss. I'm a neighbor on West 11th Street between 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue. We presented last week to the Landmarks Committee. There's a Jewish cemetery that actually predates 11th Street. There's a little fragment of it left on the south side towards 6th Avenue, and it's a treasure. And it's been in need of preservation and renovation for many years. And we're going before Landmarks next week with a proposal to fix the wall and refurbish. And we're just hoping that you'll pass a resolution of support based on the presentation we made last week. Thank you very much.
I see Chanel's hand is raised.
Yes, I just wanted to thank the group, the congregation, and the community people helping with this. It's a great improvement to the district and a splendid little place that is like a jewel to pass by and see. And visibility of it's increased by the renovation, which will be nice.
Carter, do you want to give Assemblymember Deborah Glick an opportunity to speak with us?
Carter, you're muted.
Assemblymember Glick, are you, did you join as a panelist? I can, there we go.
Deborah, I think you might be muted.
Yeah, I think you're,
No, it.
There you go. We can see you. We can hear you now.
all right.
Yeah. It's the assembly laptop, and it's not as easy to get the bar as it is on my iPad. Wonderful to be with you all. For those for whom it is appropriate, I wish everybody a Happy New Year. It is a peculiar year to be. I normally would be at my sister's tomorrow. I will not be. So we'll be doing things online. But one thing that is crucial, if you know anyone who has been out of the city and has not filled out their census, we are so far behind. We're going to lose representation. We're going to lose money. People can go online from wherever they may be and fill out the census for where they live in Manhattan and or Brooklyn, or if you have friends in Queens, anybody who has decamped to someplace else and has not yet filled in the census for their New York City location, they really need to do it and do it right away. We're going to have early voting. There are, if you haven't requested an absentee ballot and you want one, I would suggest getting that done now. They have quite a lot of requests, so they're a little bit slow in getting them back to people. They're just going to be sending them out. I think the date is the 18th, but they are aware of the fact that they have a very large number of requests. There is early voting, and I want to remind people that if you get an absentee ballot and you're concerned about the mail, you can return it at a polling site, either during early voting or on election day. There will be a place to deposit it with a poll worker where it will be secure. And there are early voting. I think the location for most of us will be at St. Anthony's, and that's for a week. So you have a week's time in which to vote and pick a time anytime during the day. I think that week will not be as busy as Election Day, and it's a great opportunity to actually cast your ballot in person. You can order, or you can request an absentee ballot, but if you don't use it, you can vote in person. So not like has been suggested, vote many times. That's an old Chicago joke. You know, you want to be buried in Chicago so you can continue to vote. But it is incredibly important this year. We have all of the legislature is up. I will be on the ballot, but so will every other state representative. So it is important for people to get out to vote, as well as obviously the president. And this is a crucial year, but the census, early voting, and we have been doing, I have a hearing coming up on Tuesday on the impact of COVID on financial aid for students. It's a complicated year for colleges, and as it is for the K through 12, every day it's a new plan. So I think it'll be an important hearing. We have requested, we've sent a letter to the budget director requesting that if at any point they actually implement 20% reductions across the board, that for higher ed, it would be short-sighted. We understand there needs to be shared sacrifice, but our recovery is dependent upon an educated workforce. And the number one reason that students drop out are financial. So we are asking that the opportunity programs, which support educationally and economically disadvantaged young people, that they not be cut any more than 10%. Same is true for funding for our public colleges and universities. They have had to refund room and board, activity fees, and other kinds of fees. So they have had a major hit. And the SUNY hospitals, which are public hospitals, many of them were full-time COVID and were unable to have any other revenue coming in. While they got federal dollars, it wasn't sufficient to cover their expenses for all of the extra equipment. And so we are, a dozen years ago, they got a direct subsidy of $160 million shared between the four hospitals, Stony Brook, downstate, upstate, and out in Buffalo. So it is crucial that, and we've seen that subsidy completely eliminated over the last 10 years. So it is vital that they not see any additional cuts. So that's kind of been our focus. We continue to provide sanitizer and masks where needed. And there still are people who have not gotten unemployment straightened out. So while it is not the wave that it was, there still continue to be issues. And I think we all know that there are concerns about the Hudson River Park. There is a reminder to the mayor from the new chair of the Hudson River Park today that they need to get off the tow pound. Remove that, put it somewhere else, or reimagine how they go about that task. At the end of the year, the city will be obligated to start paying rent, and clearly with the very serious budget issues, that's not the best use of their resources, which is really our money. So that was a letter sent to the mayor today by the Hudson River Park. So Whitney's open. There's going to be a Highline event next week. I did take the subway. If you haven't taken the subway, you've been concerned, everybody is wearing the mask. There was one jackass who didn't. But basically, people are very careful. They try to do social distancing, but wearing masks is very effective, and I did not feel at risk. So things are coming back a little bit at a time. And of course, the issues that people are concerned about with more homelessness. It's more a matter, having talked to some of our partners in the arena of dealing with social services. They've said that it hasn't been a major uptick. It's just that people are more visible because we do not have hundreds of thousands of visitors, office workers, and tourists on the street. So our homeless citizens are more visible and are struggling because they too are not getting the kind of help that they may have gotten from passersby. So we have a long road to go, but I'm confident that we will recover. And the important thing is to stay safe. So I wish all of you the very best. And thank you for giving me a few minutes to talk to you.
Thank you, Assembly Member.
From 11
we have a couple questions for you, but I do want to let everyone know that Valerie posted some very important links on the chat if you'd like to see links to the census as well as the absentee ballot. Thank you very much, Valerie, for that. Michael, you have a question?
Yes, a real quick question. Deborah, good to see you. Happy New Year. Thank you for being with us tonight. Quick question about the census. I know there's been some talk about extending the deadline. What is the hard deadline for getting the census in? I have neighbors who have not yet filled out the form. What should I be telling them?
Tell them September 30th. They are in court now. It's been thrown out at a lower court that the foreshortened time frame was illegal. But I would tell people that get it done by the end of the month. There is some talk that it will be that the end of October is the date, but I'm always on the safe side. So tell them September 30th, come hell or high water. And
I will,
if you're
thank
in the
you.
South, you have a lot of high water.
You know, this raises an interesting point. A census worker came by my office. That's where I work. It's actually in Tribeca, CB1. And they asked about information about other neighbors. And they took down their names and asked if they stayed there. Is it legal for me to give neighbors? And she took down their names and telephone numbers, counting them as residents because she had that in her system.
Well, you know, I'm not completely and utterly conversant in what their procedures are, but if they took down the phone numbers, it's usually because they're going to contact them directly. I was an enumerator when I was in college, but nothing was online then. So I think that what they're trying to do is to get information about, I don't think they're filing for them.
Okay.
What they're doing is getting the phone number in order to contact them, in order to tell them that this is how you can register.
Great. Susanna?
Deborah, thank you so much for joining us. Two things I wanted to say. One, thank you for raising the issue of homelessness. Actually, the Social Services Committee is hosting a meeting next week when we'll get an update from our local homeless outreach workers. So it's a very topical subject. The other thing I wanted to ask you was about Hudson River Park and the tow pound. Is there any realistic expectation that in light of the crisis and the fiscal crisis that we'll get the tow pound off by the end of the year?
Well, while I'm an optimist, I also don't engage in magical thinking. So I doubt that the tow pound will actually be relocated. But I think that this was, from the new chair, a reminder and added pressure. They have had 22 years, and other municipal uses have in fact been removed from the park. And there have been, both with elected officials, community board representatives, at least 2, if not 3 meetings with the police department, DOT, the mayor's office, with a myriad of suggestions of how to, I personally, in the 21st century, do not believe that they have to rebuild a large structure that meets all of their specifications for height and so forth. So they're saying, well, ULURP is a very complicated process. Well, you know, they A, should have started that a long time ago. B, they should have also been aware of the fact that while they were twiddling their thumbs, many locations that would have been available to them have been developed. So they've allowed themselves to have diminished options at the same time that they're not looking at more technological advances. It would be appropriate if they need to clear a street. You know, we all know that cars disappear from streets where there has been a somebody parked legally, and then there's a photo shoot. So they take the car. They don't take it to the tow pound. It is not towed. It is not ticketed. It is relocated to a street where no parking 8 to 6. And when you call the police and say, I think my car was stolen, and you tell them where it was, they tell you, oh, it wasn't stolen. We relocated it because of a Con Ed emergency or whatever it was, and here's where your car is. They could do the same thing and put a boot on it, and you could pay online or at the local precinct, and they could come and take off the boot. There's no reason for what has been described as the, eighth ring of Dante's Inferno over at the Toe Pound for that to continue anymore. So it's mindless, and I think that I'm very pleased that the governor and the DEC commissioner are reminding the city of the deadline.
Thank you, and thanks for your support on that.
Georgia?
Yes. Good evening, Assembly Member. I know you just said that you don't believe in magical thinking, but I'm curious if you think Governor Murphy's decision to apply a millionaire's tax at 2% on everything $1 million and above will move our governor, Governor Cuomo, to more seriously consider a wealth tax. Thank you.
Well, we have had a millionaire's tax. I don't remember off the top of my head the percentage marginal increase. We have a myriad of issues that have been presented as revenue raisers, and at the current moment, you can't change rates in the middle of a fiscal year, first of all, and second of all, I think that there is great hope or has been hope that there would be revenue replacement out of Washington. I think we are still thinking that we would wait until the end of November to make a decision about what we may or may not expect out of Washington, with the hope that there are change in some of the federal officials, and with that, some new thinking about how they're talking about bailouts for the airlines, but still, because those jobs are important, yes, but so are the jobs that are paid for out of city and state revenues, teachers, healthcare workers, first responders, and so we believe those jobs are critical too. And we also understand that the country is not going to have an economic recovery without the economy of New York, Illinois, California, Texas. All of those states are important to the national recovery. So that's the optimistic part. I don't think it's magical thinking. And if that does not come to pass, I do think that the governor will be looking at other ways to address what is a substantial budget deficit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lois?
Yes, thank you. Happy New Year, Deborah. 5,781. And my question
It feels
is,
like it.
What? What was that?
It feels like.
Yes. Does your Committee of Higher Education get the stats of COVID-19 positive to your committee directly, or from the colleges and universities, private and SUNY? Or does your committee have to go directly online from the health department to get the statistics?
At least for the public universities, there's a dashboard. The SUNY dashboard is not an aggregate. It gives it campus by campus. And at the moment, CUNY is essentially fully online. They have maybe about 1% of students who might be going to campuses to use certain facilities, whether it's research and labs or library facilities. Their athletic facilities are not open. So it's a very limited number of people at CUNY. So they would be not specifically as a college, but rather as New Yorkers. But SUNY is open and has people on campus with the exception of Oneonta, which had a very large outbreak. So, but that's a dashboard. It's updated every day. The private colleges, it's a little bit different. We don't get that. That's not something that would come directly to the committee. That would be something that we would have to look at through the health department.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very precise.
And there's a question from one of our attendees is asking whether your office is going to be sponsoring the flu shot this year.
We are working on how we might be able to do that. We're in talks with, we've done this in the last few years with Northwell, and we are in the process of discussing doing it outside, perhaps at near the AIDS Memorial Park, setting up tents, tables, chairs. We're talking with Corey Johnson's office, whether we would do that together. So we don't have a definitive answer, but we hope to, by next week, work out details if in fact Northwell does seem to be willing to set that up in terms of providing the nurse and the material. We would have to organize everything else, but I do think that it's a good location, available to the bulk of the population, and if we needed extra seating, the park is there. So it seemed like doing it outside was a safer option than trying to find a large indoor location. But we would want people to register in advance so that we can know that we are spacing people. So we don't have it all out. We've thought about it a lot. We have a lot of it in our heads, but it isn't absolutely nailed down, but we will do so hopefully by the early part of next week.
Okay, thank you very much. I know we have Senator Brian Kavanaugh in the looking to speak, but thanks for all that great information.
Thank you.
Carter, have you been able to identify Senator Kavanaugh yet?
No, if let me just see if.
In the meantime, maybe the follow-up to Deborah would be Janine Kiley, who has an update on education and what she learned today. Janine, would you like to take the floor for the public session?
Sure. Good evening. I'm sure many of you have heard that shortly after 10 a.m. today, the mayor announced for the second time a delayed start for public schools, which had been expected to open in just 2 school days on Monday, September 21st. Instead, schools will open on a rolling basis. District 75 3K and pre-K kids will still start school on Monday, September 21st if they opt it for blended learning. K through 5 and K through 8 schools will open Tuesday, September 29th, Monday's a holiday, and middle and high school students will start on Thursday, October 1st. I think we are the only major school system in the nation that is essentially starting school in October. The question is why? And the answer is staffing and safety, but it's staffing. 32% of students opted, and growing, that number is growing, opted for 100% remote. That means 58% opted for blended. Blended means kids will be in school 1 to 2 days a week, but they'll be home 3 to 4 days a week. So you take a class size of 30, divide it by 3 to 4 to create smaller cohorts. But if you don't add teachers, the math doesn't work. 2 days ago, the DOE announced that many students in the blended model likely would have little to no direct instruction on their remote days, which means little to no teacher interaction 3 to 4 days a week, and parents went ballistic. Under the deal announced today, in addition to 2,000 teachers the DOE is redeploying from Central, they're going to hire 2,600 more teachers for D75, 3K, pre-K, K through 5, and K through 8 schools. According to the UFT Twitter site, they're looking at more options for middle and high schools. So those kids are still out of luck. Going forward, there's lots of problems. The number one problem is chaos. Chaos for principals, teachers, and parents. My 7th grader was on a Zoom orientation for his entire grade. I was across the room and read the news out loud. That's how he learned it. He said, "Oh no, I really want to go to school on Monday." Teachers running the class heard about it for the first time from their students. According to an email somebody forwarded me later in the day, it was sent by Richard. That would be Chancellor Carranza. It was at 2:52. Children who are enrolled in fully remote programs will still begin full day instruction on Monday, September 21. However, children in blended learning, that's 58%, will be learning remotely. I don't know what that means. I sent a clarifying email. Richard did not answer me. I copied someone else who would. And she wrote, if your child is signed up for 100% remote, there are no planned changes for them at this time. If you're planning to send your child to in-person school, AKA blended learning, as they will still be participating in remote for part of the week, then depending on the grade they are entering, it may be delayed. So bottom line, it depends on your school. Good news for one of my kids, his school had a backup plan, and all the kids will be, everybody, remote or blended, will be learning next week. But it's very unlikely that every DOE principal and every DOE school has a plan like that in place. So bottom line, lots of chaos. Parents are scrambling for childcare. Teachers and principals are scrambling to figure out what to do for their students. And the children, those who are living in temporary housing, English language learners, students with disabilities, and students living in poverty are going to fall further and further behind.
Thank you. Any questions?
Right.
There you go. Well, good summary. You know, Senator Brian Kavanaugh is under Eliana Cohen. So, Carter, if you wouldn't mind activating.
He's been renamed and he's a panelist. He should be able to unmute himself. Senator?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can see you. Great.
Thank you so much. I have to say I've been in this chair facing the screen for about 9 hours today. So it's nice to have new faces. So thank you for the opportunity. I'll be brief. I do have a few other appearances I have to do tonight too, but I'm very happy to be with you tonight. Just a few updates. First of all, I think I mentioned this. I think the last time we were together was early August, and we had just introduced this bill, but we've now launched our effort to get our COVID-19 Small Business Recovery Lease Act enacted. This is a bill that would have the state authorize the city to link property tax reductions for property owners with small business leases that restructure any arrears in the leases that have arisen during the hardship of the COVID crisis and provide long-term affordability. So I'm doing the bill jointly with Yuleen New in the legislature, and Brad Lander and Keith Powers are both pushing the same concept in the city council. So we're hoping that the state will authorize this, and then the city can use it as a tool to try to address some of the needs of our small business, which I don't think I have to tell anybody on this call are really dire in many neighborhoods, and probably basically every neighborhood. I know Deborah talked about the census. Just do the census. We had a sort of a rally in Foley Square yesterday, but 13 days left. It's really critical. Hundreds of millions of dollars, congressional representation. So I heard somebody say that their friends still haven't done it. I think the question is why? Like, you've had months, just it's a few minutes. Just we should all urge everybody we know to make sure they're participating in that. Similarly, I think I talked last time we had passed reforms to make it easier to vote. One of the big things we did is made it so you don't have to wait till the last minute to request an absentee ballot under previous law, you had to wait until it was close to the election. You can request an absentee ballot now. If you are planning on voting in that way, it would behoove you to get that request in right away, get the ballot in and send it back. We've all heard these reports about the U.S. Postal Service and the difficulties and challenges that both the Postal Service and the elections are going to have, the Board of Elections are going to have, but no reason to delay. It also, remember, early voting is available. So unless you're a vulnerable person, if you're, especially vulnerable to COVID, if you're out and about, that should be an opportunity to find a way to vote that isn't going to be too crowded. Those early voting sites, at least so far, have not been very crowded places. Speaking of civic engagement, we are having a town hall next Wednesday, September 23rd, aimed at young people and talking about how they can get engaged. And we have a great panel of people who are going to discuss that. Among them is your own Betty is joining us as a panelist on that to talk about the joys of being a young person on a community board and other matters. So we are very excited to do that, and we would appreciate if you could, pass along the invitation to folks who might be interested in joining us. Again, it will be aimed at high school and people in college age and maybe their early 20s, and it's a terrific panel. So hopefully people can join us on that. Just a couple brief updates on housing. Today we had a housing discrimination hearing. It's our second hearing. The first was in December. This was in response to some great investigative journalism done by Newsday last fall. We had scheduled a hearing in December. We invited all the people whose questionable activities in the housing market in Long Island had been exposed by Newsday to show up. Most of the brokers and salespeople declined to show up. We had subpoenaed them to show up in April at our second hearing. That is an unusual thing for the legislature to do. That hearing had to be postponed. It was in person in April, but it was rescheduled for today. We had dozens of brokers and executives of all the real estate companies explaining themselves, and also some experts on fair housing. And we do have a full package of fair housing legislation that were also the subject of the hearing. And there was a little drama. We actually went to state Supreme Court in Albany to enforce those subpoenas with some panelists who had told us they were coming and then declined as of last night. We've now rescheduled in some negotiations with a judge and the lawyers for these brokers. We've rescheduled the sort of second part of this hearing for next Friday, and they've now agreed to participate. But we're taking this very seriously. And, everybody understands, I think, that although Newsday did a great job of exposing this on Long Island, it really is an issue in most of the United States and certainly throughout New York State. And, we've had a lot of talk lately about racial equity and justice. The core of a lot of our country's problems around that is still racial segregation, which was active policy of our governments at all levels, of business and the real estate industry at all levels. At minimum, we ought to be able to root out the ongoing discrimination. So we're looking at legislation that would address that both in the sales market as well as in the rental market and throughout the state. I'm happy to talk about the details of that if anybody's interested in bills. I think last time we hear the eviction moratorium was waning and going to expire in early September. It has been extended shortly, I think, after your last meeting until September 30th. The courts have done that, and it is a blanket moratorium on evictions. So the good news is you cannot be evicted anywhere in New York State right now. It is illegal for landlords to put people out of their homes. The bad news is that expires September 30th. The federal CDC has announced an eviction moratorium that is probably of some use in the event New York State allows our moratorium to expire, but it's very tricky to access. It requires that you make some assertion to your landlord of your hardship being a result of COVID. It's not clear whether it would provide for situations where your lease has just expired or other circumstances you might get evicted. I think Brad Hoylman also as Judiciary Chair has been really a leader on this, but we've worked very hard to keep this moratorium in place starting in mid-March. It's coming around again, and we are pushing for, you know, the courts have actually stepped up here, but it really is time for the policy making political branches of the government to step up. The governor and the legislature really ought to extend this legislatively. I have a bill that would do it through January 20th. There's another bill sponsored by Karina Reyes and Zellner Myrie in the Senate that would extend it even further. But we ought to step up and do this legislatively. It's going to be a huge problem if evictions begin again for many people in all of our communities. We're also still pushing for a means of paying the rent of people who haven't been able to pay because of COVID. I think I discussed that last time. I don't think there's much of an update on that. And we are still waiting for the federal government to do whatever they're going to do with respect to relief. It is looking like they may before the election, which I think would be, you know, a problem in all different levels. But, you know, there's still some hope that will happen. But I heard Deborah's warning against magical thinking earlier, so I don't know how to assess the odds, but it certainly is a rough impasse down in Washington. I think I'll stop there. Happy to take some questions. I can't stay too long because I have 2 more meetings, but happy to take a few.
I don't see any questions here, but I have one question for you, is that there's a lot of small landlords and there are a lot of tenants not paying and there's a lot of vacancy. Is there any relief for tax breaks when it comes to real estate? Because real estate taxes haven't come down and you have a lot of suffering out there from small landlords.
Right. The bill I mentioned would deal with commercial spaces and not residential tenants. I have 2 bills that I've sponsored, one of which passed. It was the Emergency Rent Relief Act, which is intended to actually pay the rent. It is limited to tenants who were low income before the COVID crisis and continue to be and have a loss of income. There were 90,000 applications for that period. It has closed. Some of that money seems to be going out the door now to pay rent for the first 4 months of the crisis under the terms of that bill. But that was $100 million in funding. The larger plan, which many of us have joined pushing the federal government to fund, would involve $100 billion nationally, which, you know, seems like a lot of money, but in a world where they're doing trillions in packages when they get around to acting. New York State would get about $10 billion. For perspective, that's 100 times the $100 million we've already allocated. That is intended really to address the inability of people to pay and all the consequence of that for landlords, not just property taxes, but also mortgages and you know, the costs of operating and maintaining the buildings and paying employees. Short of that, we also, the legislature, both houses passed and the governor signed legislation that grants localities throughout the state blanket authority to restructure their property taxes, to lower them, to delay them, to waive payments and penalties. We decided, the decision in Albany was not to mandate that on the localities, because of course they have to balance their budgets. So we left it, we did it before the city's budget was enacted, but it is up to the city, which basically charges and sets the property taxes to address that. And again, the recovery lease bill I mentioned earlier gives an additional authority for them to do that in a particular way that would connect any reductions to reduced affordable leases for commercial tenants. But we have not so far taken a step to unilaterally reduce the taxes. And whenever people go to Albany and say, do this thing, take control of this over the city, I just say, be careful what you wish for. There are many instances where, you know, what we're seeking in New York is local control and not state control. So we've been reluctant to take that step so far.
Rocio?
Thank you so much for taking my call. Again, I'm going to ask you, as I asked you last time we met at this meeting, if a landlord decides to go along with your proposed commercial leases, how do we know that we will not be putting ourselves into a rent regulation or rent control of commercial leases? What are the actual details of this program? For a landlord to be able to go into this program, we really have to understand how long is it going to last, when it's going to end, what are our options, what provisions are going to be made, what if the tenant turns out to stop paying rent and not behaving, and you would want to do a holdover or any kind of action against a tenant or a default on the lease, what are the provisions that are going to be involved? Those are minor details that are very important.
No, they're not. They're not minor. They're very. Those are all that we probably should. We should stay in touch with you as we design this. I mean, the idea is to create a state statute that is sufficiently directive so that it creates parameters for the program, but the details of that would be worked out at the city level. And so again, we have a bill that is, the state bill is in, and it says that the affordability needs to last at least 10 years. The tax break can be up to 10 years. It has some other provisions as well that are specific. But our idea is to authorize the city to do that. And then the bill specifies that the city, by enactment of the local legislature, the city council would have to add some of these details. At the end of the day, there's no mandate here on property owners or small businesses. So the city is going to have to design a program that is sufficiently specific to ensure that people are interested in taking advantage of it. We have had lots of conversations with property owners as well as small businesses. We had a rally in Chinatown the other day, and some of the organizations there are both owners of property as well as owners of small businesses. So there's a lot of enthusiasm. We've been having conversations with the Fiscal Policy Institute and economists and the Hospitality Alliance, which knows a thing or two about how leases work and what's going to be necessary to make this program viable. But that the city, because the city council meets every other week, more or less, we think there's more flexibility there for them to sort this out going forward. The legislature may well go back only once more during the course of 2020. So we want to get a bill in place that authorizes this and get it signed by the governor. But it'll be an ongoing conversation about those details.
Okay, we have another question from William.
Hi, Senator Kavanaugh. I just have a quick question. I know Senator Hoylman was kind of simultaneously working on SB 8865, which would require landlords for businesses with less than 25 employees to either accept lower of 20% of revenue or 1/3 of contractual rent. I was just wondering if kind of you're envisioning how this might work kind of parallel to your bill. Is it like a tenant will have the option to either try to establish the recovery lease, and if not, then they can turn to 8865 and say, okay, well, I'm just going to pay 20% of revenue? How do you kind of envisioning those things working together, assuming they're both passed?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest and say I'm not quite sure. Our bill provides for very long-term affordability. I think that Brad's bill is more intended to deal with kind of the emergency now, like give some relief right now. So in our bill, in order to participate, the landlord and the sort of property owner and the business owner would have to do a lease that addresses any outstanding arrears. So we'd have to restructure any existing debt between that tenant, for that tenant at that property. So it would deal with the short term, but it would also give you the assurance that the security of having 10 years of affordability going forward. With respect to the idea of kind of mandating a reduction in rent, I need to take a closer look at it. I've been skeptical of that approach in the residential setting, as I think I've said here before. I've really been focused on an approach of trying to pay the rent. But Brad's bill obviously is getting a lot of interest, and it's of interest to me, but I haven't really sorted out how it fits in with the larger picture.
Thank you.
Great, and if anybody wants to take a look at the chat, there's a link to Senator Kavanaugh's Young People Civic Engagement there, and I understand we have Gail Brewer here. So do you mind activating her for me, please, Carter? I can't find her.
Yeah, Gail's ready to speak.
I'm ready. But first of all, Kavanaugh knows more than I do, so he was great to listen to, more substantive. So I'll be quick. First of all, I was appreciative of all the things that your chair, thank you, Carter, said at the borough board this morning, but there are a couple of things that are imminent. One is the restaurants. I think even since this morning, we did send out a letter to the mayor. We'll get you copies, we'll put it in the chat, just talking about the things that you mentioned. Obviously, need longer hours in terms of the October. We want indoor dining to be such and such, but also we mentioned please clean restaurateurs around the outdoor structure because the sanitation truck cannot do that. So I don't know if it addresses all your issues. I don't know what's going to happen. If there's any indication of schools, it'll be minute by minute. So restaurants, barricades, NYPD, I think we're making some headway in the sense that to the credit of our letter, but then also every time a reporter meets with the mayor, they talk about why are the barricades still up. As we know, there are barricades and have been in some cases blocking off a street, sometimes, which is fine, just the building, sometimes no barricades around NYPD station houses. But it really does mean that there is a disconnect between community and police, at least in some neighborhoods. It really adds to the challenges that the police are having, and we'd rather have those challenges go away. So I just want to mention that we're making some headway. I don't know what to tell you about the schools. I've just been on Zoom for the last 2 hours with different school districts. I can barely follow type A, type B, offer 3, offer 4. They just don't have enough teachers. I don't know where the mayor's going to get 2,500 teachers in a short time period, etc. And there are a lot of parents on this discussion, and you know better than I do all the challenges. But I wish that we could succeed from the Board of Education in the Borough of Manhattan, because I think you all would be able to figure out what to do. So we'll have to see where it ends up. I have a feeling that it'll be a lot more Zoom. We are going to be in touch with all of the shelters to see what kind of technology they have, bandwidth, etc., internet connection. And the other thing that was frustrating was that I think I might have mentioned, but we put in millions and millions of dollars to the Department of Education, schools, and technology, and ventilators, 2020. That's last year's budget. Okay, so did the city council, so did the other borough presidents. Guess what? They never spent it. We couldn't get it spent until last Friday when we announced, oh, finally, Gail, yes, we can spend your $12 million. So now we're rushing to get contracts for the technology. Can Chromebooks be purchased or not? I could go through a whole long list of 10 points of questions on top of everything else. So yes, finally, after our letter and a press article in the Post, the money is being spent. In our case, it's 12 million. Multiply that times the whole city. Okay, schools. Then we have good news about dining out. We said to the public, find wonderful spots where there is outdoor dining and it's very special. So there was a panel and judges, and tons of people were submitted their favorite outdoor dining site. And so the Chai spot, 156 Mott Street, was one of those selected. As you know, it's a wonderful owner who happens to be from Pakistan originally. And I was there last night for Chai. Oh my God, it was so fabulous. But you know what's also fabulous? The owner of the building, both at 156 Mott and a few doors down, his name is James, he has lowered their rent based on the fact that they have a lot less business. They have both restaurant and also amazing scarves and clothing from Pakistan. So, but it's rough. And something that almost made me cry was that since they got selected, they got some press, you know, it wasn't the New York Times, but based on our selection, there was quite a bit of online press and so on. And the day before the announcement that we made, they were going to close. But based on our announcement and based on the fact that customers showed up, they're staying open. So little things matter. Congratulations is all in your community boards. I just want to say we need more of those stories, but that's very special. Obviously, the vacancy continues. We walked in August from the bottom to the top of Broadway, as we did in 2017. No surprise, 335 vacancies now, probably more. That was a whole month ago. 78% increase from 2017. We have a lot to do. I know in Soho, your wonderful bid mentioned that there's a 31% vacancy in your area, just in his district. So, and we know that by February 2021, mandated by our law, there will be a vacancy database for commercials. Now that doesn't answer, Carter, question about what are we going to do to support bringing these mom and pops and storefronts back, but it is at least information. I want to also talk about the nonprofits. We wrote a letter to the city. I know state legislatures have done the same on the state level. As you know, the nonprofits are the basis of keeping families going during the pandemic, and same as they did in 9/11, same as they do almost every day. But as you know, so many times they don't get paid their full allotment. And now what's happened on the state and city level in terms of the human service, they often don't get what they have been promised. So they paid for the PPE for their staff. They paid for the food. They paid for everything, support services, and they haven't gotten their money. So we did a city level. I think there was a state level, same issue. For goodness sakes, they deserve to get the money that they have already outlaid and been promised. So I'll leave it at that. And they're extremely upset. Human Services Council is taking the lead on that. We also been working on the pedestrian curb ramp accessibility. We found, of course, that there are lots of places where, particularly near subways, where it's not appropriately fixed and repaired. And we don't need to tell you all the challenges that produces. I am very proud of, in Central Park, not in your area, but there is an amazing suffragist pioneers monument. It was unveiled on August 26th. I had a lot to do with it. Pam Elam, who's my friend for many years, used to work for Miriam Friedlander. We met in 1978. And she led this Monumental Women's unveiling. Took us 7 years. It is an unbelievably fabulous statue of 3 women. So if you have a chance to go to the park and see it, I think you will feel that you did something that was very, very special. So those are just some of the issues that we're working on. We're obviously going to be at the schools a little bit on Monday, but mostly on the 29th now because of the change in dates, as you know, in terms of what is being opened. We'll see if that happens, with tons and tons of sanitizer, census information. On the census, we have just mailed with the League of Women Voters. I know you're sick of hearing about the census, and so is Carter sick of it. But we found that there are 35,000 Manhattanites who requested absentee ballots for the primary. They are temporarily elsewhere. So there are 35,000 of them. The League of Women Voters, with our help, is mailing to the 35,000. We got the list from the Board of Elections. We have done 2 postcards to the counted census EDs. That's 280,000 postcards. We have given funding from the state. We came in late, but we gave it to CBOs from a part of Manhattan to the other. They're out there. We were in Harlem today. We've given it to LGBT Center. We've given it to the Koreans. We've given it to Latino groups, Black groups, all kinds of groups, community groups, saying you need to work with your constituency to get the census done. And I think it's inching up, but it's very slow. I know you know that only too well. Thank you very much. I hope that this is helpful. It always is a pleasure to work with your community board. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. We do have a couple questions for you. Susanna?
Thank you, Gail, for your time with us. I just wanted to echo your concern about retroactive contracts for social service providers. It's an issue that we learned about actually through the controller's report some time ago. And we wrote a resolution asking the city to at least look at possible solutions for it. It's a disgrace. And it really imperils especially the smaller social service providers that just cannot afford to advance that money. It looks like solutions may not really require so much a budget as they do simply just rethinking the organization of things. So thank you for supporting that.
Thank you, Susan.
Rocio? You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Gail. It's great to see you. I wanted to ask you if you could please go back to what you said regarding the commercial vacancies, the details of that commercial vacancies. If you don't mind, could you go back?
No,
Because
I'd be glad to, and I could also send you the full report, so that would be even better. But basically, we walked from, in 2017, we walked from the bottom of Broadway to the top up and saw how many vacancies there are, 188. Again, you know, about. And then we just did it in August, and there were, I think it was over 300, but it was a 78% increase just in vacancy. In your area, in the Soho area, the bid indicated that they have a 31% vacancy. But I can send you literally block by block, so you have the whole thing.
Great. And Michael, you have a question?
So, I'm sorry, can I follow up with that? So would commercial owners of commercial properties, will they be penalized because they can't get a tenant to rent in their store?
No, the only thing that's happening, from my perspective, the only thing that's happening is owners will be listing where they have a vacancy, but there's no penalty.
Thank you.
Michael?
Yes, hi Gail, thank you.
Michael knows everything. Yes, Michael.
I have a quick question for you regarding the Envision NoHo Soho initiative. We were very, very active. A lot of work went into the efforts of all of the participants prior to the pandemic. Is there any status on that? Is it still on hold? What do we expect for the future?
Yeah, I think that I'm sure it's going to come up again because the mayor's office is interested, but we haven't come to any conclusion, and we will put together the group again, which you were so active in. So.
I don't think, any other follow-up, Michael?
We look forward to hearing from you. And once again, we do look forward to your leadership on this issue. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Gail. We really appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thank you.
We are going to go to our
I just wanted to thank you for something that we've been asking for, which was the board trainings for the board members, the anti-bias training that.
Yes, that's going to happen. Very
I was going to thank you during my report, but I'm going to thank you in person now. And when you guys have more details, we'd love to hear it.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is David Gentile. I've just elevated you. So if you could unmute. David?
Davide, are you there?
Let's see. Carter, do you see him? I just elevated him. Let's see. Try it again. Well, Carter, why don't I tell you what, while you are looking for him, if you don't mind, I'm going to read a very, hello?
Yeah, he's set up to speak. He may not be with us, so yeah, just.
Right. All right. So he just wanted to speak about the next two issues that we're going to speak about in the public session, which is the DOT proposal for University Place. I'm not sure because his email didn't actually say his position, but I believe he was questioning the DOT's study. But I will read a testimony from John Ritter, just summarizing it, which is excuse me, Carter, you're saying something? No? That he understands the committee has agreed to a resolution. This is the traffic transportation to study the issue further, which he supports. And he felt as though the DOT did not implement the plan. He doesn't believe that the plan should be permanently implemented at this time. He's a resident living on 12th Street between 5th Avenue and University Place. And he's someone that frequently uses the bicycle lanes and is a bus rider as well. He feels as though there were two specific oversights in the study. One, that it didn't register the significant impact, the increase of noise disturbance. And in terms of the current proposal to reverse traffic on University Place, I would expect an even greater increase in horn noise, as I believe the change will exacerbate traffic congestion and associated with honking on 12th Street west of University Place and on University Place north of 12th Street. The second key issue missed by the DOT study is the emergency vehicle access. Ultimately, cars consistently park in the striped zone between the traffic lane and bike lanes on 12th Street and 13th Street. Some of the biggest culprits being police vehicles, which clearly compromises the ability to move emergency vehicles through what we have has essentially become a congested one-lane street. And that is from John Ritter. David, have we found David? Or
yeah, I'm here.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially the problems all stem from the busway and a combination of the busway and the protected bike lanes, quite frankly. What happened on 13th Street, what is currently happening on 13th Street University Place is, I think, beyond the pale. Right now, during COVID, there's limited traffic, and so essentially it's not as acute as it would be. But make no mistake, as soon as traffic resumes to quote unquote normal levels, the 3 input, 1 output problem at 13th Street University currently is an absolute nightmare and is totally unacceptable. And if they reverse the traffic from 13th to 12th, they're simply moving that problem 1 block south. And 12th and University is even more congested, in my opinion, just simply because of the topography, than 13th and University. The sacrosanct no right turn on 14th Street is really the cause of all of this. If they would simply allow vehicular traffic to flow north on University and then force the vehicular traffic to turn right, east on 14th, and then force them to make another right on 14th down to Broadway, it would immediately solve this problem. I mean, University Place should either flow entirely southbound or entirely northbound, not some combination of the two. There are plenty of ways of solving this. I mean, it's just spitballing off the top of my head. You could simply create a traffic flow where nobody could travel more than 1 block on University Place, for example, if you wanted to alleviate this. But the idea that like you can't have any cars outflowing from University Place to 14th Street is ridiculous. One of my neighbors had a great solution where allow them to cross 14th Street to turn west, go up to 15th Street along Union Square West, and then turn on 15th Street. Also, it's a perfectly viable solution. But the idea that you're going to allow...
I'm sorry, but David, your 2 minutes are up.
Oh, okay. Well, just to recap in 1 sentence, the situation on 13th Street University Place is absolutely not acceptable, and moving it down south is totally unacceptable.
All right, thank you very much. And we'll be discussing that with our resolution later today. That ends our public session. Chair Carter Booth.
Great, thanks, Dan. So now we're going to move on the conclusion of our public session, and now we're going to motion to adopt the agenda. The agenda that was sent to board members includes an additional item which is not in the agenda that is in the download package, and that is under the standing committee reports and other business. Number 7 is the announcement regarding nominations. With that, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved, Lois.
Great.
Second.
So the agenda is adopted. Now we're going to move on to reports to the public, and we're going to have the elected official reports. If we could have the various elected official representatives raise their hands, that would be great. And we'll start off with Jacob Priley from Senator Brad Hoylman's office.
Hi, everyone. Jacob Priley with State Senator Brad Hoylman's office. 3 quick updates. We are proud to announce that Community Board budgeting is up and on its way. CB2 has given us 4 projects that we are going to be asking the respective agencies to apply for state funding. So as that process continues, I just want to thank Carter and Bob and the board for their work on this new kind of innovative idea. And it's a little clunky and we need to work out some kinks, but appreciate CB2's participation. And then 2 legislative updates. we are proud to announce the Furious Act, which would give community boards the ability to ask that cameras in school zones be used to be turned on either in the evenings or on the weekends to track and capture those that are using our streets for street racing. We've heard from a number of constituents about this. So we want to give DOT the power to be able to use the cameras for that purpose. And then second, and I know that Assembly Member Glick spoke to this, our revised pied-à-terre tax has been reintroduced. One piece that we are getting a lot of questions about is how it will apply when people see that it'll apply to a condo or co-op that is assessed at $300,000. That often means that the market value is well above that at about $5 million. And there are also numerous carve-outs that are built into the bill. The idea is definitely not to target those that are creating wealth and building wealth within their homes. We are looking to target a very specific population. And I would be more than happy to answer any questions about that or get back to you on any details about that. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jacob. And let's see, next I've got, I'm just going down the line in the order that everybody raised their hand. Iraq from City Council Member Carlina Rivera's office. Let's see, here.
Hello, everyone. Can you listen to me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. Good night, everyone. Very quick, the Councilwoman joined a census march on September 2nd to remind people to fill out the census as our numbers are not great. The march started on Avenue D, went up 12th Street and then down 2nd Avenue, and then with a census registration drive in Astor Place. It was a very successful event and we're continuing to push for those numbers to go up. Additionally, we continue to receive several emails and calls regarding University Place DOT's proposal. We appreciate everyone reaching out. We have made sure DOT receives all the comments and we will continue to ensure the community is heard through this process. I'm gonna leave my email down in the comments, in the chat box, so you can reach out to me with any further thoughts or comments that you might have. And we'll continue to advocate, for you to be heard. Additionally, just two quick announcements. Next week on Monday, the Councilwoman will be co-chairing an oversight hearing named the Department of Correction and the Correctional Health Services Management of COVID-19 in Jails. Should be pretty informative on how Department of Corrections has been handling the pandemic through the last, I was going to say a couple of months, but it's more than that. And on Friday, she'll be chairing another hearing to follow as a follow-up hearing on hospitals to review the program contact tracing and receive more updates on that. Other than that, I don't have further updates, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I don't see any questions.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And next up is, one second here. We have Shivani from Assembly Member Yuleen News Office.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, amazing. I will keep it quick. First, the Assembly member hosted a education webinar last night with a principal and school nurse from elementary school in Taiwan to discuss their success in bringing back in-person schooling in their country, tips, how to keep us safe. Obviously, education is a big topic, and this webinar happened last night, so it was before today, before knowing that things were pushed off even more. But education is definitely one of Assemblymember News' focuses right now because it's so prevalent and urgent. And then she also speaking of education, but a little bit different, she attended a roundtable for CUNY, a new deal for CUNY about the need for immediate CUNY funding. There were funding cuts during the budget, and it's really important that our city and our community has that resource. It's very important. So she will continue to fight for that and speak up about that. Senator Kavanaugh got into it, so I don't need to get into it as much about the small business relief legislation, but that is something that they as a group are very focused on right now, and helping the small business community. And then earlier in the month, the Assembly member also spoke at a press conference to call for emergency legislative session. There's a lot of great legislation on the table, but none of it can be passed until they go back to session. So that's also something she's focusing on. And then finally, as per usual, we are still doing PPE drops. So if you know of anybody who needs anything, any organizations, anything like that, please feel free to contact our office and we can help you guys out with that. We have plenty to go around. And unless there's any questions, that's it for me.
Great. Thanks, Shivani. And next up, we have Anthony Drummond from Councilmember Chin's office.
Unmute. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of quick announcements. No, there's been a lot of talk on the school reopening, so just want to share that with you that Councilmember Chin had sponsored Resolution 1410, which was also led by Councilmember Mark Traeger, who's the education chair, to only open school buildings that meet health and safety standards prescribed in the UFT checklist. This resolution actually passed yesterday. And our team is also working and pushing for better ventilation, advocating for open space applications, and also expediting with FDNY learning lab inspections and fighting for various to ensure equity in remote learning. And also in addition, Councilmember Chin is renewing her demand to provide answers on building safety and ventilation, along with COVID testing, staffing, PPE, quality equipment, and technology accessibility in order for the entire school community to feel safe to return back. And last thing I wanted to cover in relation to seniors is that Councilmember Chin sent a letter on September 4th to Mayor de Blasio to engage with us on plans to reopen our senior centers and open them safely. This letter was signed by 25 city council members, which includes the speaker, Corey Johnson, and the chair of the health committee, Levine. And we asked for immediate and consistent guidance on the city's vision and stages for reopening with detailed information on timeline, funding, and community outreach. I also sent the email to Bob to share with the rest of the community board that copy of the letter. And our office was also proud to join Susanna Aaron and the CB2 Health Human Service Committee this week on the discussion of the Senior Center concept paper. So just wanted to acknowledge that. And the last thing, on Monday, September 21st at 10 a.m., Councilmember Chin is going to be holding an oversight hearing on the future of senior centers after COVID. And we encourage you to join and share your thoughts with the city and how to better support senior centers. That will be coming up on Monday, September 21st at 10 a.m. And in addition, the City Council will also be hearing legislation that our office introduced, which is Intro 2030, to extend the $50,000 maximum threshold for screen injury until 2022. And those are my announcements. So any questions? Yeah.
Great, thanks, Anthony. We've got one question from Susanna Aaron.
All right. I just want to thank your office for participating on Tuesday night. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Susanna.
Great, thanks, Anthony.
All right.
And next up, we have Luke Wolf from the Controller's Office, Controller Scott Stringer.
Hey everybody. So as so many speakers have mentioned, back to school is obviously top of mind for so many students and families, especially given the mayor delaying the timeline yet again today. So I'll focus my updates on some of the work that we've done to make reopening safer and more equitable for families this coming year. The first thing is I want to share the comptroller's resource guide with all of you. So every year we come up with a resource guide, really for students and families to help them navigate the upcoming school year. This year, really focused on some of the basic information around health, cleaning, and safety guidance, virtual learning, some mental and emotional wellness supports, and also for special education students, multilingual learners. So we hope that can be a resource to help them navigate the upcoming school year. Second, we sent a letter to the mayor and DOE, specifically focusing on the acute needs of the 100,000 students experiencing homelessness in our city. And we called on them to designate one interagency director for students in temporary housing, really focusing on that population of students who have their own acute needs, such as unreliable internet and city shelters, location and accessibility of learning bridge programs, and finding space for them for when their parents might be at work. Lastly, we know another big challenge has been transportation for students, especially given this year with MTA service cuts, school buses operating at limited capacity, and the need for more social distancing. So the comptroller proposed a first of its kind bike to school plan for students. And what the plan, if put into practice, would do would call on the city and philanthropic partners to come together and provide free bikes and city bikes to interested low-income students so they have an alternative transportation method to get to school. We know that that has been a barrier this year, especially, like I said, with the many new challenges. As the most recent survey showed, 18% of students already walk or bike to school. We want to make sure that more students have access to that so they can get to school in a sustainable, safe, and healthy way this year. I'm happy to take any questions on what I mentioned or anything else our office is working on.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'll come and get that.
Great, thanks, Luke. I have a couple of questions. Susanna, did you still have your hand up or no? Okay, Lois?
Yeah, it involves the bike racks at the schools, because many kids chain them with locks to the fences. So I was wondering how you're going to install bike racks, or are they going to be the city bike racks that will be installed near the school or on the school premises?
So in theory, this plan has not been adopted or taken up by the city. It's just our proposal at this point, which we would love for them to take up. The plan calls for expanded bike infrastructure at the school facility itself. So provide for students not to just chain them to the fence, but provide kind of a designated area for students to be able to do this. And it would have to look different on each block and each school. We're not so prescriptive about what that should look like because each context would have to look a little different depending on the block and the school that it laid on. But in general, the plan does call for more bike infrastructure in and around schools to make sure that students can do it in a way where it's safe and also, of course, not just chained to the fence around the corner.
Great, thank you. And next we have Patrice Comerford from Speaker Johnson's office.
Yeah.
Pat, are you with us?
I'm here, I'm sorry. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm just going to give a quick update of what we're doing in the district during this challenging time. We are helping to address the food insecurity by distributing hundreds of meals to local seniors and families, including West Village Houses and Westbeth. And we are very grateful to our friend Patricia Laria for her help with that. To help supplement the sanitation cuts, we have allocated $150,000 to the ACE program for the homeless. To service highly trafficked corridors in the district. They sweep the curbs and they bag overflowing baskets. They're working along 6th Avenue in the village, but if there's places where you see a lot on the street, contact me. Maybe I can help get them over there. And we've worked with them to adjust their schedule so that they're around on the weekends. And last weekend we held our second cleanup day, and we were joined by Jane, Charles, Grove, Bedford Downing Street Block Association. And we are continuing to work with the Department of Health and the Parks Department and local restaurants on rat issues in our parks. We were also working with block associations, another thing that you should contact me about if you're seeing rats. And we are continuing to offer our housing clinic virtually. So we do that on the second Tuesday of every month. And you know, if there's anybody that you know that needs to speak to a housing attorney, we can get one connected. We do it by the telephone. And that's it. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
I don't see any questions. We have two other speakers that we neglected to have speak during the public session. I'm going to call on them. The first is Rosalind Barber from the Public Theater.
Hi, yes, good evening. I'm Rosalind Barber. Thanks so much for squeezing me in. I'm the Administrative Chief of Staff of the Public Theater on Lafayette Street. Although the public has been closed since March 13th, we've been hard at work producing free digital content for you and everyone in New York City. We believe that art plays an important role in healing, and we believe that it's our duty to continue to serve you during these challenging times. Earlier today, we announced a new slate of programming that will take place this fall, including new digital plays, radio dramas, and a projection project that will address our collective experience as a city throughout this extremely difficult period. The projection project is going to cover the top half of the public's facade and will be in conversation with the city as we collectively experience an inflection point both around the pandemic and our national reckoning with systemic racism. The first projector project will feature text in which New Yorkers share with each other their commitments that they make to a collective future and an expansive artistic collaboration. The second will feature the work of BIPOC visual artists and will be invited to respond to the shared experience of Black Americans who have been overlooked, covered up, and disregarded. We expect the projections will be shown for about 6 weeks from early October to mid-November. We look forward to hosting you through our programming, which will be on our website. And you can see still in the street cases, if you are walking down Lafayette Street, more information about all that's to come in the coming months. And we deeply appreciate all of your support. As you know, this is an extraordinarily difficult time for the performing arts as we're unable to resume our regular activity. And we just have greatly appreciated many of you who have come to our digital programming and supported us that way. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Rosalind. And then our next speaker is Jane Carey from the Whitney. Jane.
Hey, Carter. Hi, everybody. Thanks for letting me speak. I wanted to just talk about the Whitney's reopened. We reopened to the public on September 3rd. We're all excited too. It's been so good to have something positive to share and to get back to doing what we do, which is to show art. So as a gesture to our neighbors in the city of New York, we are doing Pay What You Wish admission through the month of September. We've had some days sell out, but there's still strong availability for the remaining days this month. We're operating at a reduced capacity, so we're requiring all visitors to pre-book tickets on our website, and there also are our updated visitor policies. So we're requiring folks will have their temperatures checked when they come in, or required to wear masks. There's one-way directional signage to get you through the museum safely. We're not doing any tours or programs on site through the end of 2020 at least, continuing to assess the situation. So we're keeping up with our online digital programs. And I just wanted to flag that we opened our free lobby gallery show around day's end, which is on view until October 25th. This has works from about 15 downtown artists made between the 70s and the 80s at a time when the city was facing a financial crisis a lot like what we're dealing with today. So it includes works that capture the West Side Piers, the Meatpacking District, and the communities that lived and worked in Community Board 2. And this is provides some context for the completion of the Day's End sculpture, which will be complete in late fall on Gansevoort Peninsula. So that's it. I see I have 30 seconds left. That's all for me. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jane. I think we've got one question from Robin Rothstein.
Yeah, just a plug/question. Just want to use this opportunity to let everybody know on this call that we are having a joint meeting about museum reopenings on the 24th including Jane at the Whitney. And Jane, you will be giving a more extensive update than you just did because you'll have more than 2 minutes on the 24th, correct?
Yeah, we're planning for a 10-minute-ish presentation with our two chief operating officers who led our reopening planning. So we're looking forward to that meeting next Thursday.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Valerie.
Thanks, Jane. Always great having you guys here. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the chair's report. The borough president had already given her report earlier. The first thing on my list was thanking the borough president for offering a new training module, which is for anti-bias training, which we had been asking for a number of months. So that should be available when, and we'll share the details with board members when we have more information. Number two is you've heard from a number of people, sanitation department, the cuts really starting to have an impact in our community, especially with trash blowing around as there's service cuts on the garbage cans on the corner. I just wanted to share a link, which I had ready before, but it took a while. Let's see. Okay. Share a link on the Adopt a Basket program, which we'd really like to encourage any groups or individuals, if they're interested in participating. Basically, you take responsibility for a garbage can on your, wherever it may be, and bagging the trash in it. And so as there are less pickups, this keeps the trash cans from overflowing. And we're also hoping to encourage any of the restaurants with built structures in the roadbed, if they can clean a little bit more judiciously around them. I'm sure most of them are, obviously, since they're having diners in there. But from our reports from the sanitation department, they're not able to get the street cleaners in around any of the bigger structures. And so it takes them about 20 feet to get back into the curb lane. And the issue is more, once the trash really starts blowing around, it takes a lot more time to clean it up. So that's really the main issue with that. Was another thing, we'd had some discussion in the past about Revel scooters. They're going to be coming to us in October. If you see any issues, I have not personally seen the same issues that we were seeing earlier before Revel scooters were suspended in the city. But if you see any issues, if you could let Shirley and I know, they'll be at Traffic and Transportation next month. And I don't know if Bob had this in his report, but I noted it in my notes, which we had I think one of the first movie shoots, outdoor movie shoots, which was on Jersey Street, which is a good signal, at least, that there's starting to be a little bit of activity in the community board. The census has been mentioned. It's nice to hear that St. Anthony's is where there might be early voting. It's a lot closer than some of the locations that were offered previously. I believe that Assemblymember Glick had brought that up. And then lastly, Bob had sent out information regarding the memorial service for Tom Connor, which is on September 23rd. And I'm sure Bob will share more information on that during his report. So that's the chair's report. Bob? You're on mute, Bob.
Sorry about that.
Bob, you're still on mute.
Okay.
Third time's a charm.
Sorry about that. All right. For the third time from my end, I just wanted to remind all CB2 members and as well as members of the public that CB2 committees will be including discussion of budget requests to be recommended to the New York City agencies during their meetings in October. Social Services will be doing it at the end of September. The New York City budget process allows community boards to recommend 40 capital and 25 expense budget expenditures. And so anyone interested in this discussion is encouraged to attend these meetings and give us your opinions. Just to follow up a little bit on Carter, who mentioned the Adopt a Basket program. I think we've all seen the overflowing baskets in the corner. We've gotten a fair number of complaints about them. It's a result of the sanitation department's budget was cut. All city agency budgets were cut, and they reduced the number of basket pickups to 1 per day and none on Sunday. I think I read last week that the mayor had restored some monies to partially restore some of the budget collection, the basket collection, but I haven't received an answer yet from sanitation as to how that's going to affect our district. What I did want to add to what Carter said was I got a call from the Hudson Square bid yesterday, and they are going to start reassigning some of their staff to sweep sidewalks and curb lanes and to empty baskets, primarily along Hudson and Varick Street between Canal and Clarkson Streets. Unlike other bids, many of you may know this already, the Hudson Square bid, sanitation has never been a part of their mandate, unlike other bids. So they're going to be trying to help out in that way. Third, libraries in our district. Just want to remind folks that the Hudson Park and the Mulberry Street libraries are now open for grab and go services, in which you can order a book online or reserve it on the phone and swing by to pick it up. And also Carter mentioned the virtual memorial service for Tom Connor that has been organized and scheduled by Greenwich House. I did send an email about it earlier today. We're going to post the information about it on the website and on Facebook. And as Carter said, it's next Wednesday. It's September 23rd at 7 p.m. And that's it, Carter. That's all I got.
Thanks, Bob. Robin, I see you had your hand up. Was that from earlier? I take it that's a yes. Okay.
Yeah, I'm done. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Lois, did you have something you wanted to raise?
Maybe you have the answer, or maybe someone else has the answer, Bob. But when the indoor dining starts, like on September 30th, will the patio platforms, outdoor dining, disappear, or will they be removed like October 31st? Do you know what the options are or what the rule will be?
Yeah, you know, Lois, that's a great question. And I skipped over that in my report, actually, because so many things have been covered. So the open indoor dining begins on September 3rd. It's 25% for restaurants, which is great news. So when that reopens, all the other dining options remain. At this point, it's through Halloween. I think that most people, you know, are hoping that that's extended as far as the dining, particularly on the sidewalk, as far as that's concerned. I think that we're going to be discussing open streets restaurant programs this coming month at the reopening working group. There's still some issues with the structures as far as snow, plowing, other things that you know maybe needs some tweaking. But for the next for October, they're all slated to be running concurrently. So that's really good news, I think, for the restaurants, and hopefully the weather is accommodating to that, particularly on the weekends. And just as another note, we currently have 17 streets that are designated for open restaurants, and a large number of them were just extended to other days of the week. Not all of them are 7 days a week. Some are 6 days a week, different time periods depending on different streets. But that information, I can put that up. I'll put a link up to that as well in a few minutes. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Carter, about heaters, do the restaurateurs need to apply to the city for the heaters, or what?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, at this point, the only heaters allowed in New York City are natural gas, hard plumbed into your building's gas system. Those are the only outdoor heaters and electric heaters. So that's where that stands. I know that there's been some lobbying on that, but the propane heaters, I haven't heard anything in the past. Propane tanks are considered pretty dangerous by the fire department. So I have not heard of any movement on that. That's a very complicated question as far as moving forward with that, in that they're 3 different agencies, I think, that are involved in getting that type of a heater. And I think that the fire safety precautions in New York City are, being what they are, it's a challenge. And I don't know if any of you heard about the fire down on the Lower East Side last night. I guess somebody had told me there's another one in Hell's Kitchen. You know, big fires are really scary, and particularly in our dense neighborhoods. So figuring that out is really a challenge in balancing that out, particularly in all the structures that, you know, we've seen built. So that's a complicated question, and I've not heard of any movement on that as far as any answers, but that doesn't mean that's the final answer. That's just what I know. So thanks, Lois.
Thank you. Yes, thanks.
Coral?
Hey, so I'm sorry if I missed this, but what is the date that has been given as the end date for them? Or are the restaurants allowed to operate as long as, you know, patrons are willing to sit outside with heat lamps?
Well, there aren't heat lamps, as I just explained, in what most people are familiar with. The outdoor dining the status, from my understanding, under the DOT program, which is what all outdoor dining is under now, I believe ends on Halloween. So, and as most of everybody knows, these announcements don't occur very far in advance.
So right now we only know through Halloween, and what I heard a little earlier about applying for the heat lamps is what? They're allowed to apply, or they're not allowed to apply?
Well, it's a very complicated process. You have to apply to DOB, you have to apply to the fire department, you've got to have a registered architect providing the plans. But, you know, I'm gonna, Valerie, do you want to chime in here? Because I know you've been preparing the materials for your meeting.
Yeah, I just wanted to, since the open restaurants is becoming a piece of dialogue here, that the reopening working group will be doing a open restaurants follow-up on Tuesday, October 13th. And sorry, I'm getting chimes. So we will be addressing just the state of the program. You know, it has not been officially extended, but it's sounds like something else might be imminent there. But also with the heaters, it also requires a certification exam from FDNY. So it is quite, it's actually an in-person exam, and I don't know. So we've been, a couple of us here have been in talks with Council Speaker Johnson's office, and just trying to, knowing that there are a lot of there are a lot of operators that have maybe never had a sidewalk cafe before, that may be trying other alternative heat sources that they may not know are illegal, and just we're trying to find a way to mitigate that process. But it is a very big safety issue with the structures.
Okay, I mean, the only thing I would say is that obviously restaurants can't plan to staff or continue their economic model if they don't have any guidance further out. So I would really strongly suggest that we come together.
Well, I think everybody's really aware of that. I mean, that's as you heard, Gail. I mean, we've been advocating for that, and it's something that's really at the forefront of almost every single conversation that we're having. So it's definitely. So let's see. We're going to move on to the next session, which is our business session. Where it's already just about 8:30. And the first is, I believe the August minutes were distributed to everybody by email, correct, Bob? So everybody should have had a chance to review those minutes. Is there a motion to approve the August minutes?
I move.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, great. I'm going to put forward that we utilize the same voting method that we've been using, which is sort of a larger omnibus vote at the end of the meeting, so that we can avoid having multiple votes, unless a board member wants to specifically call out an item for a separate vote. Is everybody in agreement with that? And if so, what we will do is we will do a roll call vote. Since generally our first vote is a roll call vote, we'll just do a roll call and then we'll move into the committee reports. Is that okay with everybody?
Agreed. Yes.
Okay. Valerie, do you want to proceed with the attendance?
Sure. Susanna Aaron.
Yes, here.
Akila Asqui.
Here.
William Benesh.
Here.
Keen Berger.
Here. Yes.
Carter Booth.
Here.
Katie Bordenaro. I see you there. Anita Brandt.
Here.
Rich Cacapolo.
Yes, here.
Ritu Chaudhry.
Here.
Great. Coral Dawson.
Here.
Where's that? John Paul DeVerna. Doris Diether, I believe, is here. Bob Ely.
Here.
Mark Fitzgerald.
Here.
Cormac Flynn.
Here.
Great. Oh. Okay. Joe Gallagher.
Here.
Susan Gammy.
Here.
Okay.
David Gruber.
Here.
Amigo.
Here.
Michael Adler.
Here.
Susan Kent.
Here.
Janine Kiley.
Here.
Betty Kubovi Weiss.
Here.
Patricia Laria.
Here.
Michael Levine.
Here.
Oh my God, turn off your fucking alerts.
Sorry.
Guys.
I can't do that right now. I did. So
I'm so sorry.
it's okay. Michael Levine.
Here.
Janet Leff.
Here.
Ed Ma.
Here.
Matt Metzger. Daniel
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Sorry, Metzger's here.
Thanks.
And Dan Miller here.
Ryan Pape.
I'm here. Thank you.
Donna Raftery.
Here.
Lois Rakoff. Robin Rothstein.
Yep, here.
Sandy Russo.
Here.
Rocio Sands.
Here.
Scott Sartiano.
Here.
Shirley Secunda.
Here.
Kristen Shea.
I'm here.
Siegel.
Yes, here.
Thanks. Georgia Silvera Siemens.
Here.
Dr. Shirley Smith.
Here.
Chenault Spence.
Here.
Thank you. Kathy Sullivan.
Here. Here.
Eugene Yu. Thanks, Kathy.
Okay.
Here.
Susan Wittenberg.
Here.
Anthony Wong.
Here.
Adam Zeldin.
Here.
Thank you so much.
Great, thanks. So the first committee report is social services. Susanna Aaron.
Hi, everybody. This is a little bit long, unfortunately. We had a kind of hastily put together meeting because we learned that DFTA, that the Department for the Aging had put out a concept paper. We had been waiting to see that. We'd been waiting for a long time to see that, but they never notified us of it. So we learned about it by chance. We put together this meeting, and that was just Tuesday. So I sort of whipped this together. Also, we didn't really have a quorum, so I think we're going to have to vote on it. So therefore, be it resolved that Community Board 2 Manhattan welcomes DFTA's efforts to spur innovation in the design of senior services as expressed this way in its concept paper. Quote, the department's overarching goal is that older adult centers provide a range of high quality services, programs, and resources that attract, meet the needs of, and enrich the lives of the diverse group of older New Yorkers, and looks forward to providing continued input to the process of developing an innovative request for proposals for new models, and is sensitive to the concerns expressed by the leadership at Greenwich House, CB2's primary provider of senior services, that the concept paper lacks necessary detail in terms of funding, metrics, the number of contracts DFTA seeks, desired outcomes versus outputs, and other specifics. and requests a fuller understanding of how DFTA intends to apply public input to the shaping of its RFP. And requests that DFTA lengthen its period for public input and delay the release of a new RFP until the city is able to provide more information on the details missing in the concept paper, and until the city's senior service providers' situations stabilize and they are able to provide more informed input. And requests that DFTA make a stronger effort than it has to date to seek the input of individual older adults and not just the entities which generally enter into contract with DFTA, and request that DFTA fund or execute on its own a full data analysis of older adults across the city at the neighborhood or community district level to allow service providers to better understand the needs and desires of their constituencies and the non-members in their catchment areas. And finally, request that DFTA return to CB2 in the course of a slowed down, iterative process that is better suited to meeting the needs and desires of our older adults. Phew.
All right, so I need a motion to put this forward onto the floor because there was not a quorum at the meeting. Is there a motion to put this on the floor to vote on it as a resolution?
So moved.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and I see that I have two hands raised. Keen, would you like to speak?
Yes, I was at the meeting and I agree completely with the resolution. So I thought I had to put it on the floor, but you already did.
Great, thanks, Keen. Shirley, Secunda?
Yeah, I also completely agree with the resolution. Tremendously thorough and to the point. I just had a question actually for Susanna, which was, I noticed that you said that you had to actually ask the Department of Aging for the concept paper. And have you any idea if other community boards have received the concept paper?
Yeah, that's not exactly accurate. What we learned was from Greenwich House that it had been released. It was publicly released. So what they failed to do was notify us of the release, and I don't know if they notified community boards. I don't think our community board was notified. I certainly wasn't notified, but I don't think that Carter or Bob was notified either. So it wasn't that it was. I mean, it's public. Anyone can go and take a look at it. It wasn't given to us, but yeah, I was annoyed by that.
Okay, the reason that I'm asking is because I thought the points you made were so great that it would be great to have other community boards also send in their own resolutions with support of this. If we can.
Thank you. That's a wonderful idea. I will talk to Bob about whether we can distribute this. Public input is, they're accepting public comments till October 5th, so we would have time to distribute that.
Right.
Thanks a lot. That's a great suggestion.
I don't see any other hands. Is there any other discussion on this resolution? Okay, great. So I'd like to motion that we move the social services resolution into the omnibus bill and vote on that as a block. When we get to the end of the meeting, is there any opposition to doing that? Okay, I don't see any opposition. And if people see somebody else nodding or raising their hand, please let me know because I can't see everybody on my screen. And I know some people that's easier. Great, thanks. So we're gonna move that on there. Next up is traffic and transportation. Shirley Secunda.
Right, and we had one resolution unanimously approved. It was in response to a proposal by the New York City Department of Transportation, DOT, to reverse University Place to one-way southbound from 13th Street to 12th Street. And you've heard some of the input tonight from the public on their impressions. And so here was our response. And again, a little long, but therefore be it resolved that CB2 reiterates its support of a fully continuous shared street on University Place all the way from 14th Street to West 4th Street and requests that it be installed as soon as feasible, taking into account provision for deliveries, drop-off pickups, emergency and other necessary access. And further resolve urges DOT to conduct a broader, more holistic study of CB2 streets surrounding and including the 14th Street TTP, that is the Transit and Truck Priority Project or busway, and how they relate to each other, including observations and analysis of traffic conditions and examinations of relevant examples in other cities, such as bus lanes in Europe that are often shared with taxis, and setting special hours for deliveries, plus traffic counts on Broadway and University Place with a comparison of current and pre-TTP counts on University should previous counts exist. Further, recognize the improvements that the TTP busway has achieved in facilitating bus riders' trips and providing a vital and efficient transportation service that is sorely needed. But we also observe that suitable adjustments here and there can balance the enhanced experience of both riders and the wider constituency, and encourages DOT to explore such alternative possibilities. And finally, we call upon DOT to address the long-lived congestion problems on East 12th Street, focusing on 12th between Broadway and 5th Avenue, identified as a problem area, with particular attention to resolving the placard parking abuses on 12th between University Place and Broadway, including firming up guidelines to implement restrictions when DOT issues placard parking permits, and conferring with the NYPD concerning enforcement of the illegal placard parking, such as in the 12th Street buffer zone. That's it.
Great, thanks, Shirley. Do we have any comments from board members or Georgia?
Yes. To be honest, I'm a little bit confused. So I have a clarifying question. Does the resolution respond? So does the resolution support the DOT proposal to make that roadway southbound between 12th and 13th?
The resolution doesn't support it. It simply recommends what our recommendation is. Otherwise, we would say we're supporting it.
But it doesn't say you don't support it. I'm just trying to figure out, you don't actually say you don't support that proposal in the resolution.
Wait a minute, hold on. By saying that we are recommending a shared street from 14th Street to Washington Square Park, where there would be the opportunity for turns all through that whole corridor, eliminates the thought of just the 12th Street turn. And in other words, spreads out the turns on all those several streets. If you look at the whereases, I think maybe you'll get a better idea of what we mean.
No, I don't need to look at the whereases. I'm just asking the question. So, and this is not, the questions don't necessarily reflect my vote. I'm just trying to understand it.
No,
so by saying University Place could be a shared street from Union Square to West 4th,
right.
You're saying that it's not possible to make that block between 12th and 13th southbound. Those two things are then incompatible.
It's still possible. We're leaving it up to DOT to go out and study it again and figure out some solutions. And what we're also inferring is that they should take another look at the way the busway is being handled now, and indeed the right turns that are being required at every intersection, because patterns have changed and there may be some room for a more balanced approach.
Thank you, Shirley.
You're welcome.
Now I'm a little confused. So the suggestion could be that it could be two ways on a shared street, I'm just
The
confused.
suggestion is to do a
Where it's
shared
all
street.
southbound?
Never thought of it. I mean, we could have
Well, I'm just
a
bringing.
friendly amendment that says shared street, one way, whatever. If
No,
anyone
I
would
was
like to
just
suggest
responding
it.
what Georgia brought up, because that's if the whole thing is a shared street, then which are,
Well, it's a shared street.
in which direction does the traffic go on the shared street? I guess
It can go either way. But if anybody has some very strong preferences to insert one way or, one way north or one way south or two way, the University Place used to be a two-way street, incidentally.
So Shirley, maybe we can ask a question.
Yeah.
Which is, do people support a more strongly worded resolution or whereas, thereby by stating that we do not support the current DOT proposal? Is that what you're asking, Carter?
Well, that was my initial question, because it doesn't make sense to have a shared street that's two-way for the top, or just one block is two-way, or, it's like a mixed bag of two-way for shared street. That's actually really confusing for a pedestrian or someone on a bicycle. If you're traveling in one direction and then suddenly there's a lane of traffic, vehicular traffic that you hadn't been encountering before. And the resolution, I know there are many whereases and I've read them, but they still don't actually say, they don't give a clear position on the proposal for the southbound on that 12th to 13th Street block.
I've got a couple other.
Actually, we did. We said further study is needed. That's what we really are saying here. But if somebody wants to propose a friendly amendment, maybe.
Yeah, I've got a couple of other people who want to speak here. Let's hear from them, and then we can go from there. Patricia?
I just want, my comment is about something separate. I just wanted to applaud the Transportation Traffic Committee on the resolution. I think they did about 2 or 3 years ago about the corner of Clarkson Street and 7th Avenue South. 7th Avenue, which it turns into Varick, where the Shake Shack is, if everybody has a visual. I went by there a few times within the last 2 weeks, and that whole area has a different look to it. There is a pedestrian island in the middle of Clarkson Street. So when there's a buffer, so pedestrians aren't in the middle of traffic trying to get across 7th Avenue South, going towards Pier 40 or JJ Walker Park. I just wanted to make a comment and applaud the Transportation Traffic Committee about that. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Patricia. I agree. I just saw that the other week too. It's with the turning lane going south. Yeah, it's really wonderful improvement. And Cormac?
It's nice they finally did it right.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd just like to say, first I wanted to say that, I've been in Europe, and there are indeed shared streets in which, certain of the items that share it, like the vehicular, will change directions at some point, where the bikes or the pedestrians will not. It is actually, I understand if it's a little bit outside of people's imagining right now, because we haven't had it here, but a couple of years ago, all of these things, shared streets, bike lanes, and things were outside of our imaginings. So I wouldn't get really fixated on that. It seems to me the real question here is, right now the traffic and transportation resolution, which I support, suggests that the DOT study ways to relieve the congestion issue on 12th, but it does not prescribe to them that what they have to do is change that direction on that part of university, which is what I know some member of the public who was saying before was insisting that they wanted to see. I personally, maybe that's what the board wants. I personally, think that it's actually worked to have it two ways. So, I'm willing to let the DOT take a look at it and run the experiment and do the math on it first. And to let the Transportation Committee, as I say here, tell them to study it and take a look at it and see if there are other ways to address this, rather than trying to be prescriptive to the DOT about exactly how this would work. That's all I want to say. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Cormac. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to?
I can't raise my hand because I'm still a co-host, but I think surely it'd be helpful if we kind of describe the traffic flow as it exists right now, and that it's actually running north up University, and then it turns into two-way. So we're not really prescribing anything right now. So it's not two-way. It used to be, but right now it's causing confusion because it comes at this head point, and the idea is it's not working. We want a further study. We're not going to prescribe anything because we haven't done a study. Does that work for you, Shirley, as an explanation?
I think that's sensible. I think we already say that.
No, I agree. I'm just trying to explain it so that
Yeah.
Georgia understands that it's not actually two ways right now for most of the block.
No, it's not two ways at all. It's
No,
one way.
one way.
No, it's actually
No.
two ways. But it's two
I know that.
two-way street.
Okay.
It's the street
I
that
know
goes
that.
one way for a block and then the other way for several blocks. And this was supposed to, the DOT proposal was supposed to solve the problem of the vehicles that came from 14th Street South one block and wanted to head east and found they had to turn west again, which was cuckoo. So they suggested this alternative, which from everything the community said was just as cuckoo. And when we thought about it, neither thing would work, of course. And that the best approach was what we had previously recommended, which was to have the full University Place as a shared street. And by the way, this was also in response to a really large contingent of the community asking for that themselves, which we found really amazing and delightful.
Just for clarification, at the committee meeting, it seemed very clear that the committee at this time did not support what the DOT was presenting. And maybe we should just clarify that, and that was what they were asking. And then this is all stands, supporting that same idea of what else needs to be done as far as looking. Is that correct?
Well, one of the main focus points of DOT at the meeting was that Fifth Avenue was causing the congestion on 13th Street because there wasn't enough room to pass to take a left turn on 5th. And they created more space at the intersection of 5th and 13th. We looked at that, and that little extra space really wasn't going to solve the problem. So we thought about, well, should we just have no left turns at 5th? Should we have it all the way go through? But the reality is we couldn't make that decision. So, and their answer to relieve the congestion just wasn't enough. It wasn't comprehensive enough for us. Do you agree with that, Shirley?
Right, yeah, and I think I do mention that in the resolution too. That was fine if one wanted to pass on 13th Street West, and it gave a little more leeway, I guess, at the same time giving a safer turn onto Fifth Avenue by putting in that narrow wedge. But again, we're never in favor of that turn on 13th, and we're not in favor of the turn on 12th. We want a shared street which goes all the way through. We're in favor of a shared street, but not in little pieces, not piecemeal.
Okay, so is there any more discussion? Okay, is there any unwillingness to move this into omnibus vote? I don't see anything from anybody. Okay, so we'll move this into the omnibus vote. So it's one item from traffic and transportation. And next up we have landmarks and public aesthetics. We have two meetings. Chenault Spence.
Okay. Everything's unanimous in both meetings. 2 9th Avenue to install signage in the canopy. It's a modest proposal and quite respective of the building and the district. We recommend approval. 201 Sullivan Street. the ramp and an existing rather large tree pit, and we recommend denial. 85 Christopher Street to replace windows of the street-facing facade above the ground floor. It was a really good design and went back historically for the windows, except they were rendered in aluminum-clad wood, and we asked for wood and therefore denied it. Grand Street was postponed until the next meeting. We'll come to it. 600 Broadway to install signage in the primary Broadway facade and modify the infill in the rear Crosby Street facade. It's a large chain store. We were fearful of what might happen. It's quite modest, except that the logo sign was internally illuminated, and we approved it without the illumination. On Crosby Street was a new and carefully designed delivery entrance because the building is divided into the big store and the upstairs is whatever tenants are there. And we recommended approval. 7276 West 11th Street is the cemetery we heard about earlier, and it was extremely thoughtful design, including a new section with a fencing to replace the wall that curves out a bit into the sidewalk to accommodate an old tree that was in peril because of its roots under the wall. 770 Broadway, a master plan for store infill and signage, and we recommended it in that it's patterned after, this is the Wanamaker building, and we had a section that had been approved, and they essentially copied that approved section. And the one revision we asked was that the louvers have a grill over them of historic design, so it's not just plain old louvers. Shall I go on, Carter, and do the other? I guess so.
Yeah, sorry, I was on.
Okay. It was split up simply because the 72 Grand Street was an enormous proposal for a new building. I will really summarize it briefly. There was a quite ornamented building originally on the corner that gave onto Grand Street as its primary entrance, which was typical, and turned the corner rather plain on the side, so it was clear where the front was. The top 4 stories burnt, and we were left with a sort of truncated, beautiful facade. In the meantime, the building next door had to be taken down because it wasn't properly supported. And then there was a permission to demolition for the remaining portion of the building, with the provision that the ironwork be preserved and retained. And the building was presented to us didn't mention or acknowledge the restrictive declaration. And it is brutalistic with large windows, super modern design, and the numerous whereas clauses state many of its shortcomings, as well as those at the end that deal in detail with the restrictive declaration. It's a denial for the application, and that the landmarks determine the status of the restrictive declaration, which is to the same owner that it was at the time of the demolition, and that it be, if they are preserved and can be located, that be incorporated, presumably in the original way, into the new building, and if not, that it be more respectful of the original design in a number of details, such as turning the corner, of a logical separation of the sections of the Grand Street facade, and that Grand Street be treated as a principal facade, even though the entrance to the upper floors is on the side. I'll say more if anybody wants to hear more.
We have a few comments. Somebody had said to me this was quite the scathing resolution, so I think that's appropriate.
It was a proposal worthy of scathingness. If
Okay,
scathingness is the word.
I've got a few people with their hands up. Rocio, you were first.
Thank you, Carter. Chanel, I want to go back to number 3, Christopher Street, regarding the replacement of the windows.
Yes.
How many windows are involved, number 1?
It's a 5 or 7 story building and it turns the corner, so it's a fair number.
So do we know the price? I am a little bit familiar with landmarks preservation requirements, and I know the difference between installing a window that is made out of wood, and I also know the difference between the how the window is going to react to the elements. And so my question is, did they say anything about the price that's going to be involved in replacing these windows with wood versus what they want to do, which is the aluminum? I know that wooden windows are prohibitive in price. So that I would be afraid to even try to say how much money is the difference between one type of window and the other. Did they do it because the price is so prohibitive?
No, I can answer that. Chanel, they are not vinyl windows. The windows they were proposing were clad wood windows, and they did that for maintenance, but it has a different effect. And the regulations are that they be painted wood windows, but these are wood windows that they had proposed, but they are clad with, they called it aluminum cladding. I'm not sure if that's true, but that's what they called it.
Well, I would imagine that is to help maintain the wood so that it doesn't rot over the years, and to get them a better result at the end of the day. I can understand what you're saying regarding it doesn't qualify, but to me, I know that it would be an extremely expensive deal to
I don't
work.
think there's a price
You guys
difference.
want to keep the crosstalk
There's
down?
no price difference.
Just,
You don't think there's a price difference? Of course there's a
No.
price difference.
Okay.
They're both wood.
There
But
is a
that's not
solution
what
to
we
this.
evaluate.
There's a solution to
Anyway.
this.
hands raised. I also did not, and for the next 3 people, if their hands up, let's call out the specific items to speak about. Let's not be moving all over the place. So that was my mistake for not. So obviously we're going to call out number 3, I believe it is. Susan, did you want to call out an item? Susan
It's just a housekeeping issue on the second reso, which did not, the meeting was not on August 2019, nor was it an
okay.
review. So it's just simple housekeeping error, that's all.
I see. Okay.
Valerie, do you note that?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, great. Thank you. And next is Susanna.
Yeah, I wanted to call out items 2 and 3 on this. I mean, 3 you've already called out, so just item 2. I have a question about item 2.
Okay, so you're calling out items 2 and 3, or just 2? 2 and 3. Okay.
Oh, I'm calling out items 2, and Rosia called out items 3. So
Got it. Okay. Michael?
Yes, I would like clarification on something in the Grand Street project. I don't recall the number. That's a landmarks 2.
Okay, is this a simple clarification, or is this a discussion that we need to?
No, I think it's a simple clarification, which probably can be answered at the meeting. So if you want, I can ask it now or later.
Yes. Could you just ask it now quickly?
What did the restrictive declaration cover is my question, and who imposed the restrictive declaration? Was it Landmarks Commission or which agency?
Yeah, it was the Landmarks Commission, and it came about because they wanted to tear it down. They wouldn't have been able to tear it down without permission, and the permission included that. And it was essentially to store the elements and reuse them, which is not uncommon when for one or another reason a cast iron building needs to be taken down. For the good reason they can be kept, they're big pieces that can be kept and can be reassembled, unlike terracotta or something that one couldn't so easily.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, so let's go back to item number 2, which is 201 Sullivan Street, and that's an installation of a handicap ramp. Susanna?
Yes, so my question about this, there's a history of stores being harassed by lawsuits that because they're not ADA accessible. It's a problem that we've had on Bleecker Street a lot. So it raises a question, and of course they're all landmark buildings on Bleecker Street as well. It raises a question for me about when do landmarks considerations trump federal ADA regulations? Because here is a store aiming to comply with federal regulations, and we're recommending it be denied because we don't like the look of it. I just don't understand.
No, sorry, it's not the look. It's that there's simply not enough space to pass by DOT regulation or whoever governs that. However, this is a corner property and they have on Bleecker Street sufficient space to do it. So it's not.
So you would recommend that they put it in a different place. I just feel like we can't really hobble a business who's trying to comply with federal regulations, right?
They have been denied and waivers sold and whatnot.
They've been
I don't think this is a waiver situation because there is another situation. There's another way they can do it.
They can solve it in another way. Oh, I see. It would be helpful. I mean, this is just me. It would have been helpful to point that out in the resolution, just so that.
Yeah, we were aware of Bleecker Street the whole time, but they proposed this instead.
Okay. That was my comment about item 2. I have another comment about item 3, but we'll wait till we get there.
Okay, so that was, I think to Chenault's point that these resolutions deal with the narrow issue presented, which is, even though that was discussed.
Okay, I get it.
So now with item number 3, which is 85 Christopher Street, that's an application to replace all the windows on the street-facing facade above the ground floor. And Susanna, you have your hand up here?
I do, yes. So this is a building whose existing windows are, as you point out, they're not historic. And the applicant's plan is going to bring it closer to looking historic. But why isn't a landlord obligated to make a facsimile of something historic if it wasn't historic to begin with? Like, why are those windows considered, contributing somehow if they were not historic now? And why is it the burden of the landlord to make them historic when they weren't to begin with? Does that make sense?
When they weren't to begin.
Well, you say in your resolution that the existing aluminum windows and paneling is non-historic, right? So these are
that's true of the materials. It's true of the design. In 2 respects, the profile of the framing and the division of the windows.
Yes, no, I completely accept that. The question I'm asking is, why is the landlord with having to make a facsimile, a fake historical window in the...
Can I interrupt? I can answer that.
Yeah.
These are not original historic windows. These are really cheaply replacement windows that are not approvable in landmarks. When it was done I have no idea, but they actually damaged the original windows, moisture gets in. So these are the crappy ones that have these huge panning that just covers everything. I also, if I could just take a minute about this window, one of the things about this application and many others, these are proposed to be wood windows. The problem I have with this is the regulations at landmarks have to replace them with wood and painted wood, and they need to be maintained. If we start approving an application to allow that, you're then setting up a regulation where anybody who doesn't want that kind of window has to go through this very expensive hearing process. So either Landmarks should change the regulations, equal for all, or, you know, approving it because they cost more. Landmarks isn't too concerned about cost. Maybe they should be, but that's not the mandate. The mandate is to preserve the historic character of the neighborhood. And this is not approvable according to the regulations, and there's no compelling reason. If they had a compelling reason, that would be something we could, you know, consider. But, you know, the convenience of the owner is not necessarily the primary criteria.
I understand
Does
that.
that help?
Yeah, it does help actually, and I for the most part I accept that. I just it seems unfair to ask a landlord who has windows that are not historic, like they don't contribute to the street, they're not preserving in their.
Well, they're not original. They're replacement windows, and once you're a historic district, you have to go back to something historic. You can't continue. You know, it's like all regulations are like that. It's not once you have something nasty, you can't just keep replacing the nastiness.
Okay, I accept it. Thanks.
Okay. Great, thanks. Rocio, you now want to speak on this as well. Go ahead.
No, at the end of the day, I would imagine that it's probably cost prohibitive because those wood windows are very expensive and it's very expensive to maintain. So I reject, although I understand what you're saying, that this is a requirement, but not everything should be always written in stone. And maybe if we start deciding that you cannot make these owners go through these extremely expensive, work to replace the windows just because they look a slightly little bit different, or because you don't like the way the aluminum looks, it's prohibitive. Times are hard for everyone. Times are hard for landlords, for building owners. There's a lot that's going on. And I would like to vote against this resolution because I believe that the reason being is the expense of the windows and the expense of the maintenance of the windows that have to be painted every few years because wood has to be maintained. And we have to get with the times. Unfortunately, it is what it is. These laws and regulations came into effect many years ago, but we have to look at the reality. What is today's reality? I don't expect all the buildings to be modern buildings. I love living in the village. I love the look of the village, but sometimes you have to be a little lenient and not expect the landlords to undertake such an extreme expense, because I know the difference. I had a building that somebody had, before I owned it, had put some metal windows in, and I didn't even know it was a violation until many, many, many years later. And it took me about 3 years, maybe 2.5 years, to be able to fix that violation. And I went through many, many, many hearings. I went to many mock-ups and many this and that, just to end up spending thousands and thousands of dollars more for a 1/4 of an inch of this, a 1/4 of an inch of that. It had to be to an extreme. And I feel sorry for anyone that has to go through that. Therefore, I think that we should try to sometimes be a little more lenient, and maybe landmarks will realize that they have to do that. So I will vote against this resolution for that reason, because it's cost prohibitive. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Shirley Secunda? You're muted, Shirley.
I have a question. I was under the impression that there was some leeway in terms of using other materials besides wood for windows if they simulated in a very faithful way the wood. Is that not true?
Anita, can you address that, please?
Sorry?
I'm unmuted now. It can on the back of buildings. It can in some commercial districts, but in the West Village, you know, that's part of what makes up the historic district, that character of what it was originally. It looks different. Now, I understand everything you're all saying, but, you know, I think it's a dangerous thing to start approving it at a hearing level. If it really needs to be changed, then it should be changed at the landmark regulations and not, you know, one at a time, because that's actually rewarding those who can afford it, you know, to go through this process. But it does look different, guys. It does look different.
Great.
And they don't cost that much different, by the way. But cost is really very important, but it doesn't, that's not a big part of it, because there's still wood windows.
Does that answer your question, Shirley?
Yes, it does answer my question. Thank you, Anita.
Great, thanks. Donna?
I guess I was just wondering if you wanted to put something in here that suggests to the Landmarks Commission that they may want to look at this just going forward to raise the issue about it. That if
we very much avoid using any one application to make that kind of a point, because that's not the place to do it. We can, if the wisdom is we should send a letter on this subject that treats it universally, so that it doesn't get involved in, it's just messy to try to do it this way.
then perhaps that's something you want to consider doing if you think it's worth doing.
Great, thanks, Donna. Cormac?
Yeah, so I'd like to say that I don't have any expertise on landmarks, and it's a very technical area. And I'm hearing here a lot of people who seem to be interested in becoming members of the Landmarks Committee and expert on it, and they should apply to Chairman Booth for transfer to that committee, I think. In the meantime, I'm not in favor of suddenly applying a different standard on this application than apparently we've been applying to all the others everywhere, because I just don't think that is fair or right way to do this. If, to Donna's point, there is a feeling on the board that the Landmarks Commission regulations or standard assumptions need to be changed, that should be dealt differently in a different resolution.
I agree, that's right. Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Cormac. And then I have Susan Gamming.
Hi, I just want to point out a couple of things. One is that the applicant himself did not actually discuss financial hardship as a reason to favor the proposed windows. And I understand everybody's empathy towards the property owner, but I do want to point out that this was not a point that the applicant himself made. He did make the point that the maintenance was easier, but did not make the point of the expense of the windows themselves being easier. So we mustn't presume something that was never stated. Secondly, I really want to say that the pragmatic concerns of the property owner are not actually a matter upon which we can opine in a way that impacts our decisions, and that our decisions are based on the law as it exists.
Okay, thanks, Susan. I don't see any other hands that are up. Obviously, there's some differences of opinion on a few of these items. We can still add this to the omnibus vote, and I can note that we could do a separate, people could register their support or opposition for an individual resolution during that, or we can do a roll call vote now separately. So if I'd like to move to put this into the omnibus with an opportunity to vote separately, but if anybody would like to vote on it now, I'm more than happy to do that as well. Do I hear anybody who wants to vote on that now? Okay, silence. No, all right. good. Expediency. All right, we will move that into the omnibus bill. So that's resolutions 1, 2, 3, 5 to 7 in the first report, and item number 1 in the second report. And now moving on to the bylaws committee, Susan Kent.
Okay. The bylaws working group met this week to address that there were points raised by the Manhattan Borough President's General Counsel. As you see in the report, the first one being having secret ballots. She gave us her opinion that, in fact, this is not permitted under New York State's open meetings law, and that the results of an election are, in fact, discoverable pursuant to a FOIL request. Therefore, in order for us to be compliant, the committee is recommending that the language be basically restored to what we had. Instead of so the word secret would be replaced by open, and the sentence in section 7B, sub B I7 will read, voting shall be by open written ballot. So it really restores what we had before. The second point had to do with a confusing, just some confusion in the electronic voting section. The way it had been written is that we had both these concepts of a voting window and a voting period, and that the way it evolved is that any votes that were collected via telephone would have actually fallen outside of the voting window, the voting period. So what I've done is basically simplified it. There is now, wait a minute. I'm sorry, the concept of the voting window is now eliminated. It's basically just one simple voting period, and it starts when the ballots are sent out, and it finishes when, after calls have been made in an attempt to contact those board members whose electronic votes have not been received. You have the text. Everyone has a copy of the text. And in addition, there was also an addition to make sure that any votes that are collected electronically, there will be a written record of them that will become part of the board's records, so that those votes are also, would be discoverable if someone so desired. If there are any questions. No questions.
I don't see any hands raised. And I'm just flipping through the screen. I don't see anybody waving their hands. Okay, so is there any objection to moving these into the omnibus bill, items number 1 and 2 from the bylaws working group? No objection. Okay, I don't hear any objection, so we'll move those two over, and now we're moving on to SLA licensing. Donna or Bob? Or?
Yeah, I'm going to go forward.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. We had 19 applications this month. Out of those 19, we had 6 that presented and were voted on. If you note that in terms of our resolutions, there are 18 stated on the paper or in the print. We made a mistake and we left out one, which was we need to add is 95 7th Avenue. This was presented to us, and then after consideration of the application, the applicant asked for reconsideration, and then we just missed putting it in there. So we're going to treat that, if we could, we need to add that one to vote on that. That's essentially a layover and will be represented next month, and you'll see a resolution involving it next month. So without further ado, if you want, Carter,
before you move on, just since you've raised that, so that would become number 19, item number
19.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so number 1 is APQ Union Square, La Pan Quotidien, 801 Broadway. This is a restaurant wine application. It really is an existing place that has new ownership, and that was a deny unless with stipulations that are consistent with the former method of operation at the location, unanimous vote. Number 2 is TKOKAO, which is DBA Hazia 142 Sullivan Street. This has a lengthy history, which is reflected in the resolution. It was a split vote. The majority was for deny unless with the stipulations as stated. Number 3 is Bell LLC, DBA Now or Never Coffee, 30 Grand Street. This is a new tavern wine license. This was a this resolution is deny unless and with stipulations and was unanimous. Number 4, Reboot West Village, 2 Boots West Village at 101 7th Avenue is a new tavern wine license to continue to operate a pizzeria, and that was nine less with stipulations unanimous. Number 5 is Welcome Hospitality, DBA to be announced. This is 80 Grove Street. This is the former, what will be the former Monster Cabaret Tavern and bar. And this was basically an application to try to duplicate exactly what was there currently, but under new ownership. And the committee went along with the application. It's a deny unless with stipulations as stated and unanimous. Number 6 is Eli Lilla, sorry, DBA Cafe Roma, 383 Broome Street. This is an existing business. It's been there for a while, but did not have a license. It is requesting a new on-premise license for the location, and deny unless and unanimous vote by the committee. The rest through 19 are layovers, withdrawals, and the reconsideration. That's it. I can't hear you, Carter. I think you're muted.
I said,
there you go.
There's silence. I hope I get the same answer. I was wondering if anybody wanted to call out any items to discuss. Okay, we still have the same silence. That's good. Oh, we've got one. Shirley, go ahead. Oh no, sorry, 2. I see 2 people. I didn't know it wasn't at the top of the screen. Shirley, you're muted, Shirley.
I never learned. But anyhow, it's just on item 5, the resolution number 5 for Welcome Hospitality. And it's the 5th whereas, just simply, I think you eliminated something. It talks about the hours of operation being Monday to Thursday from 11 a.m. to 4 a.m. And then it says Sunday through Saturday. And all those, I would assume those are other hours.
Yeah,
right?
well, I appreciate that, Shirley. That some Monday through Thursday is a typo. It's 11 a.m. to 4 a.m. Sunday through Saturday.
Oh, okay. So
I appreciate that. We did not catch that, and I'll make sure that that's corrected.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Shirley. Patricia?
At the top of his, Bob, when you were talking, you said that there was one you omitted. Could you further explain the one you omitted that you want us to vote on tonight? Is that what we're doing?
Yes. Go ahead, Carter.
I was just going to say, it's just they chose to come back next month. So instead of it's just a similar resolution to the other ones that says that they're coming back to us. Like if you look at all the no-shows, layover, withdrawals, it's just a placeholder. It's a placeholder resolution so that we have a record of the activity and that the applicant agreed not to file with the liquor authority until they come back to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we did get that email from the applicant saying they would not go forward until they came back to see us next month.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Rocio.
It's Rocio.
Rocio, sorry.
With the accent on the I.
Sorry.
My name has an accent on the I. Many people don't know how to pronounce it. But anyway, my question is on number 2. I noticed that the vote was not unanimous, and it was a difference of 3 and 3, I think it was. Could you talk a little bit about what were the issues, or what were the problems with this application that made this kind of vote?
Okay, the vote was 6-3, so 6 for approval.
6, I'm sorry.
And 3 were against, and the 3 that were against were for the reasons that are actually pretty well articulated in the resolution. The number 1 reason was that there's a residential hallway that is exclusively used by residents, and that this gentleman is going to be using that residential hallway for his business. That was the number 1 concern. The number 2 concern, I think, was fire safety, and that there is really no legitimate fire escape except for the front door. And it's kind of a railroad type tenement style building that goes way back. And there was no letter of no objection indicating that that they could have such a business there. And so I think those objections, along with there were a number of residents that appeared that were against it as well. And I can't speak for everybody, but those are I think the main reasons.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Shirley, you have your hand up as well. You're muted.
Okay, looking at number 2 again, and all the reasons why people voted against it, what I'm curious about is why did you decide for it? It just sounded like there were so many negatives about it, and there seemed to be opposition. Oh, and by the way, that other thing that you had said in the resolution about the SLA itself had turned them down twice for these very same reasons. So it is kind of confusing as to why it was approved by the committee. Could you go into that, Bob, a little?
Yeah, sure. Look, this particular application came in front of us 9, 10, 11 months ago, and there was a lot of opposition at that time. And the committee's recommendation was that there should not be a license at this particular location. It's never been licensed before, and that particular application, the applicant and his attorney went to the SLA, and the SLA agreed with the community board's recommendations. And we did watch the videos, or we did watch, because of COVID, you can't go there anymore, but you can listen to the recommendations. And both times it was unanimous against the application. I think there are committee members that voted in favor, and I'm one of them that did not. I couldn't, I usually go along with the committee because I have a lot of respect for other people's opinions. I think we're a pretty good committee. But in this case, I couldn't do it because I just couldn't do the residential hallway aspect of it. But in terms of, I think what the committee...
Because I think that Shirley wanted to hear from people who supported the resolution. And I think it's important to get somebody who supported the resolution to speak to this.
Yeah, that's fine, Carter, but I was trying to answer the question to her. But that's fine. If you don't want me to answer the question, I won't.
But you were explaining why you voted against it, and Shirley's question.
No, I didn't finish. I didn't actually finish. It's very hard for me to exactly put it in the words, but I do think that this application, there were a couple things, Shirley. One is the lawyer that had represented him before did not do a very good job, and basically the impression is that he said, oh, don't worry about the community board, you're going to get approved. And so he already moved in. His business has already moved in. And so he's there. And to that extent, I think that folks felt that as long as he got a letter of no objection, which is part of the stipulations that's put into it, that and that he's going to have to put in some sort of soundproofing to his business when he has to move back into the business. Right now he's outside. I think those are some of the reasons why they voted in favor of it. Now, again, I can't precisely echo everybody else's feelings. I'll let them speak for themselves, but I think those are the main points.
Donna, did you want to
I'll just say, yeah. I mean, when he came with the other lawyer, as Bob just said, the lawyer just made it sound like he would get his restaurant wine license anyway. He also, when came originally, had much later hours. He had live music. He had DJs. He no longer has the late hours. It's more in line with the other restaurants that are operating on that block at 11 o'clock, every night. There's no live music. There is no DJs. And he also had a lot of people speaking against him when he came previously. There were still a few people speaking against him, but this time he also had a lot of letters of support from people that were in the building and from nearby, which was something that we did not have when he came before us the other times. He's also open now with people commenting on how good the operation is, having met him, having been around there. So I think that also swayed my opinion, having all those letters of support, eliminating the DJs, eliminating the live music, and bringing the hours down more in alignment with the other restaurants that were there is why I voted for it.
Great, thanks, Donna. Katie? Let me just, you have to unmute yourself, Katie.
Okay, I've figured it out. Thank you. Can you hear me, Carter?
We can.
Okay, super duper. Fortunately, I was not in town when this meeting occurred, but so I was not able to participate in the committee, even through Zoom. I had noted the problem with this doorway into the residential area, which is something that's, we normally just flag and say you cannot do that. And if I had been there, I would have voted against it because I am very concerned, as Bob expressed, about this intrusion into the residential space. And I'm going to vote against it tonight, just so that going on record.
Great, thanks, Katie. Rocio?
Rocio.
Rocio. See, I'm so confused because I can't remember which one it is because I know you're going to bring it up. All right.
Thank you, Carter. Thank you. I just take objection to Robert's comment regarding the lawyer. I don't think we should penalize anybody because they had the wrong lawyer or the lawyer said the wrong thing. So it's unfair for us even to think about that. That's my comment. I think it's not fair.
Great, thanks. Mar? Mar is, you're muted.
I'm muted, sorry. Hi, I voted in favor of this application, and for all of the reasons that Donna spoke to, but also because he really seemed to me to have made a place for himself in that community. He had support from the community and fellow business owners on that block. He really did not get a fair shake with his previous lawyer. His previous lawyer really, really put him in a terrible position. And that's about it. Like he really is a good operator. And I think that we should give good operators a fair shake. And nobody was complaining from the building about that doorway. So if it's not a problem for them, why should it be a problem for us?
Thanks, Mar. And Donna?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if you read the stipulations that they signed, number 9, number 10, number 11, does have wording in there about the hallway and addresses that and the music. So I did want to point that out.
Okay, and I just want to let me just check here also, because I'm gonna. I don't think I can't. Katie, can you? How did you unmute yourself on your phone? You dialed *9.
*6.
*6. Doris, if you want to speak, if you can hit *6 on your phone, then we can hear you. They changed this feature on one of the recent changes for Zoom. Okay, I'm not hearing Doris, but Doris, if you want, if you hit the *6 and you can chime in, because I see that you're on the call and I know that you had wanted to address this. Okay, I guess we'll have to move on. So this is for item number 2. I'm assuming there's some differences of opinion on this. We can either move this into the omnibus vote, all of the resolutions, which would be 1 through 19, including the resolution number 19, stating that the applicant is going to return to the committee next month and has agreed not to file with the liquor authority in the interim. And if people want to vote separately on item number 2, I can call it out during the vote, or we can pull it out separately and vote on it now. Does anybody want to do that, or would they prefer having it in the omnibus vote?
As long as we can pull it out during the omnibus, that's fine by me.
I don't see anybody else.
Are we adding anything for number 19 since it's not? Do I need to add anything for 19 since it's only 18 listed? I didn't catch that.
Bob is going to send in the resolution, correct,
Great,
Bob?
thank you.
Yes, that is correct. I'll be sending it in to you, Valerie, and everybody else. Okay, tomorrow morning.
Great, thank you.
Great. All right. I don't see any other hands up, so we're going to move items 1 through 19 into the omnibus vote. Now we're moving on to item number 6, which is the quality of life committee. Joe.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good news, number 1 has been withdrawn, so we do not have to vote on that one this evening. Number 2 is Friday through Saturday, October 2nd through the 4th, 2020, Stone Island, and it's for curb lane closures to park a box truck and projector at the following locations: 235 Bowery between Prince and Houston Streets, 152 to 54 Thompson Street between Houston and Bleecker Streets, and 165 Elizabeth Street between Kenmare and Mott Streets. Therefore, be it resolved that CB2 Manhattan recommends denial of the application for curb lane closures to park a box truck and projector at these locations, and that was adopted unanimously. Number 3 is October 14th through 19th, Mocha Workshop window exhibits on Howard Street between Center and Lafayette Streets for sidewalk and curb lane closure on both sides. The applicant did not appear, so the committee recommends denial of the application, adopted unanimously. And number 4, October 18th, 2020, tap out on Christopher Street between Greenwich Street and Washington Street, curb lane only on both sides. The applicant did not appear, and the committee recommends denial of the application, adopted unanimously. And for the renewals 5 through 9, no member of the community called out these renewals, and therefore be it resolved that CB2 Manhattan recommends approval of the renewal applications, provided that the applications conform with all applicable laws, rules, and regulations and clearance requirements, which would include all COVID-19 restrictions, and that was adopted unanimously.
Great, thanks. Does anybody want to discuss any of the items? I see one hand up. Lois?
Yes, thank you, Joe, particularly about Thompson Street and the other one, the other streets. I mean, It's like really crazy. But this is my question for number one, the Stella Artois mural. Could you give any reasons why it was withdrawn and who withdrew it?
I believe the meatpacking bid reached out, and I believe they said that the Stella Artois withdrew their sponsorship. They didn't want to move forward with it.
Meaning that they're not going to put the mural up? Or,
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Great. I don't see any other hands up. So is there any unwillingness to move items number 2 through 9 into the omnibus vote, and we'll vote on those all together?
Thanks for including the photo of the mural. That was seriously, it was helpful.
Oh, you're welcome.
I couldn't visualize it when you spoke about it the other night. So.
All right, great. So I don't see any objection to moving those items into the omnibus vote. So we're moving all those, and also the announcement now with the new process is that I'm just announcing that at the November regular board meeting, excuse me, at the September regular meeting of the board, the chair shall announce the opening of nominations for board officers. So starting tomorrow, people can self-nominate themselves by email, which is considered in writing to the district manager. So the bylaws now read, for 3 weeks following the September meeting, any member of the board may nominate him or herself for election to one office. All such nominations shall be submitted in writing to the district manager. At the February meeting, the district manager shall announce the nominations received to date. So, Bob, what's the cutoff for that, for the self-nomination?
Oh, 21 days from today. So I'll send an email out tomorrow. I just want to remind everyone, as you just said, Carter, the next 3 weeks is just for self-nominations. If you want to nominate someone else, you'll have to wait until next month.
Great, thanks.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Explain again what these nominations would be for. Is this for the interim term? And when will there be nominations for the more permanent term starting in April?
Great question. So this is for the term that will run from November through March.
December.
Excuse me, December through March. And it's for all of the elected positions. So it's for the offices of chairperson, first vice chairperson, second vice chairperson, secretary, assistant secretary, and treasurer. And then the next period would be in the next election cycle would begin in January, and the vote would be in March. So the change that starts today with self-nominating will also occur again in January.
And the people now serving in the various chair, vice chair, you all can stay through March.
Everybody, well, we would all, if people self-nominate, or if somebody else nominates them next month, yes. I mean, provided obviously there'd be an election.
But in terms of terms, like your term would be up, then you couldn't run beyond March or serve beyond March?
That is correct.
And is that true for all the other members of the committee?
No, the only position that has a limit on service is the chairperson.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move to the omnibus vote, and let me make sure I got this all correct. Valerie, is there any consideration we need to do for these slight call outs, or should I just say what the vote is and then what we're including in it? And then I think there's 2 items that we need to have to ask about. So should I just read them out?
Yeah, read them out.
Okay. So the omnibus bill is comprised of 1 resolution from the Social Services Committee as presented, and 1 resolution from the Traffic and Transportation Committee as presented, The Landmarks Committee, there are resolutions from the first report, items number 1, 2, 3, and 5 to 7, and then a second report is 1. I believe that there may be some interest in voting separately on 85 Christopher Street with respect to the windows. I'm not sure. I don't know if I don't think that for 201 Sullivan we need to do a separate vote, but somebody could mention that if they wanted to. So it's item number 3 in landmarks, and the first report is what we will have a second vote on at the same time. The bylaws committee report for items number 1 and 2. Those will be part of the main omnibus vote. SLA items 1, 3 through 19 will be part of the main omnibus vote, and item number 2 will be the third vote, the third separate vote that will be conducted all at the same time. And items for the quality of life committee, items number 2 through 9 will be part of the main omnibus vote. So to recap, all of the resolutions that were presented tonight will be part of the omnibus vote, except we will have a separate vote on item number 3 in the landmarks committee, which was for 85 Christopher Street, and that was with respect to the windows. And for item number 2 in the SLA committee for TXO KAO DBA Heisa at 142 Sullivan Street. And that was for a tavern wine license. Is that clear to everybody? Do I need to?
You said first and third vote. So is there a third in there somewhere?
The first is the main omnibus vote.
Got it.
The second is the landmarks item number 3 at 85 Christopher Street. And the third vote is for Heisa, the restaurant at 142 Sullivan Street. So if people want to vote separately on that second and third, please indicate when Valerie calls for it. Is that clear to everybody?
So I'm going to have 3 different tallies.
Correct.
This is not calling out number 3 with the omnibus, right? This is 3 separate votes.
It's 3 separate votes. That's
perfect.
Correct.
They're all taken at the same time. Got it.
All taken at the same time. That seems like it's a clear way to do it, right?
Yes.
Okay, Valerie.
Great. For the so if you'll just tell me for the omnibus vote in this order: omnibus, the landmarks, 85 Christopher, and then for SLA 142 Sullivan in that order, and I can remind you. Susanna Aaron.
I vote yes on all of them.
Thank you. Akila Asqui.
Yes on all 3.
Thank you. William Benesh.
Yes for all 3.
Great. Keenberger.
Yes on the first 2, abstain on 3.
Okay. Carter Booth.
Yes on all 3.
Katie Bordenaro.
Can you hear me yet?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yes on the omnibus, yes on the landmarks, and no on the SLA.
Thank you. Anita Brandt.
Yes on all 3.
Okay. Rich Cacapolo.
Yes on all 3.
Ritu Chaudhry.
Yes on the first 2 and no on Sullivan Street.
Got it. Coral Dawson.
Yes on all 3.
Thank you. Valerie De La Rosa, yes on all 3. John Paul DeVerna. Okay. Doris Diether, I know I have your note about 142.
No on number 3.
Okay. What about the others? What about the omnibus and the landmarks?
Yes on those.
Thank you. Bob Ely?
Yeah, no on the SLA or Sullivan Street, and yes on the other two.
Thank you. Mark Fitzgerald?
Yes on all three.
Okay. Cormac Flynn?
Yes on the omnibus, yes on the landmarks, no on the SLA.
Okay. Joseph Gallagher?
Yes on all three.
Okay. Susan Gammy?
Yes on all three.
Okay. David Gruber?
Yes on all three.
Great. Wayne Kawadler?
Yes on all three.
Susan Kent?
Yes on all three.
Great. Janine Kiley?
Yes on all three.
Betty Kabovi Weiss?
Yes on all.
Thank you. Patricia Laria?
Yes on all three.
Okay. Michael Levine?
Yes on all three.
Thanks. Janet Liff?
Yes on the first, abstain on the second, and yes on the third.
Okay. Ed Ma?
Yes on all three.
Great. Matthew Metzger?
Yes on all three.
Daniel Miller?
Yes on the omnibus, no on Sullivan Street, yes on SLA.
So Sullivan Street and SLA are the same thing.
Sorry, that's correct.
So 85 Christopher is landmark?
No on SLA, that's correct.
Okay, perfect. Brian Pape?
Yes on all three.
Great. Donna Raftery?
Yes on all three.
Lois Rakoff?
Yes on omnibus, no on landmarks, number 3, I think, and no on SLA, number 2.
Thank you. Robin Rothstein?
Yes on all three.
Okay. 1 second. Rocio Sands?
I'm going to vote no on landmarks, number 3, no on traffic, and yes on the rest.
So yes on landmarks, no on SLA, yes for omnibus, and you're calling out.
I'm voting against the resolution on landmarks.
Okay.
Okay. I'm voting against the resolution on traffic. And I'm voting in favor of the resolution on SLA.
Okay. And so the traffic one you want to call out for yourself? No. Okay. Thank you. I missed Sandy Russo, apologize. Sandy? Is she in?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry about that. I
sorry.
skipped
Yes
over.
on all three.
Thank you. Okay. Scott Sartiano?
Yes on all three.
Okay. Shirley Secunda? I can't tell if she's muted.
I never remember. Yes on 1, abstain on 2, and no on 3.
Thank you.
Now 3 is SLA, right?
3 is SLA. So just to reiterate,
No
yes
on 3.
omnibus, abstain landmarks, and no on SLA, right?
Right.
Thank you. Kristen Shea?
Yes, hi. Hi, I vote yes on all 3, but I recuse myself from the social services vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Frederica Siegel?
Just
Yes
for a
on all.
second, Kristen, you're recusing because you're a city employee, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, we just have to note the reason for the recusal.
Okay.
Thank you.
I figured that was it, but thank you for clarifying. Frederica Siegel?
Yes on all 3.
Thank you. Georgia Silvera Siemens?
Yes on all 3.
Right. Dr. Shirley Smith?
Yes on all 3.
Chenault Spence?
Yes on all 3.
Kathy Sullivan?
Yes on all 3.
Okay. Eugene, you?
Yes on all three.
Okay. Susan Wittenberg?
Yes on all three.
Anthony Wall?
Yes on the first two, no on the SLA.
Okay. So give me just 1 second.
You still have Adam as well.
Oh, Adam. Sorry, Adam. I started. Adam Zeldin. Apologies.
Yes on all three.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carter.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Late night. Okay. So here's the tally for the omnibus. I have 46 yes, 0, 46 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstain, and 0 recusal, with the exception of the following: a no for Rocio on traffic, and a recusal on social services for Kristen Shea because she is a city employee. As for landmarks, we have 42 for, 2 against, 2 abstentions. For SLA, we have 36 for, 9 against, and 1 abstention.
Great. Thank you very much, Valerie. I think that covers everything on the agenda. So, thank you, everybody, for coming here tonight. It's really nice to see such great attendance at full board meetings. That's one of the things that's a really nice to just see everybody's faces and have everybody participating. So thank you. And don't forget Tom's Memorial Service, which is next Wednesday. And is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Yes.
9:59.
Second.
Thank you.
All right.
Carter, just
I
mention
just
that.
want to say it's nice to see your face too, Carter.
Yes.
Thanks, Ken.
And everyone check the calendar in October. There's some dates that have moved, or some meetings that are not on their typical dates.
Yeah, great point. And in the package, it's one of the first few pages, has the draft calendar, and just the Parks and Waterfront Committee and the Schools and Education Committee are both meeting on the 14th, and the Land Use is meeting on the 7th. So that's a change. And Valerie had mentioned the reopening group on the 13th. Arts and Institutions and Quality of Life is on the 5th. Traffic and Transportation is on the 1st. The SLA meetings are where they normally are. The other meetings are the Equity Working Group in October is the 27th. Social Services is 29th. And we still have a couple of meetings next week. The Equity Working Group is on Wednesday. Valerie and Robin, your meeting is that Tuesday?
Thursday.
Thursday, excuse me, Thursday. And then there's something on Tuesday. I don't have it in front of me. Does anybody?
Yeah, what it was.
Carter, was there a problem with one of the hours from 5:30 or 6:30, which was one of the meetings, the first meeting on the list?
Did you order?
The Parks and Waterfront and Schools and Education were meeting on the same night. One is the Parks and Waterfront is meeting first. Is that correct? At 5:30, and then
That's right. Yeah. Or I think it's going to be 5 to 6:30.
Why can't we have multiple Zoom accounts so meetings can go concurrently?
We put that to the borough
They're
president.
funded by the borough president. That's why. So there's a package.
Yeah, and also the Monday the 5th, the Arts and Institutions at
Okay.
5:30 and Quality of Life is at 6:30.
Correct. Yeah, and then let me just check just for next week. I just want to make sure that.
We have bylaws on Monday and social services on Tuesday.
Oh, that's right. And social
Yeah.
services on Tuesday is going to be discussing getting updates on the homeless issues in board 2. So hopefully those of you can attend next week. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Everybody else.
Thanks,
next
everyone.
week. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Night.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Don't forget to clean up.
Bye, everyone. Bye, bye. Bye. Bye.
Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you, Alexandra, for your help with this tonight.